What up, Doe One Pride? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where One Pride goes worldwide. My name is Anthony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined this evening by Ryan McCluskey, which can only mean one thing. The College Football Podcast is back for season 4, baby. The Flames of Liberty. And that's why we got a big old smile on our face here, Ryan. The draft is now long in the rearview mirror. We have had a lovely little break afterwards, because it's so taxing going through all the draft stuff, doing the players, all that. You're going to have a break. And now we get to have a fresh look at the season going forward into 2024 for college. We get to start again, nice and refreshed. How have you been while we've had our little break off?
Yep, I've been good. Yeah, like you say, with the that last season now is firmly in the books. The draft, well, like I say, we're already in mandatory OTAs are literally starting for most teams within the next week. So yeah, we're now entering. I suppose it's a new era of football, isn't it? Like I say, expanded playoff. Like I say, a lot of newcomers and fresh faces will be entering the next 12 to 14 months. It feels like the old guard is gone. You're going into a year. There's no favourite. For me, there's absolutely no favourite whatsoever because no one right now has got the best quarterback in football because that's just not a thing right now. So, yeah, I think this will be one of the best years we've seen in a long time, I think, potentially.
And like you say, this is a new era. There is no more Nick Saban. There is no more Jim Harbaugh. And there is no more 14 playoff format. We are going, the 14 playoffs is dead. We're going to 12 this year. I think we keep this format for 2 years before we go to 16. So we're going to see very quickly how this new format shakes out. Are we going to have like 5, 6 SE teams in there? Who knows? But I'm with you. Like, you look at the top teams, Michigan, that team's gone, a lot of it has. Alabama, the star coach has gone. Ohio State's lost its quarterback. LSU's like the field feels as wide open as it has in a long time going into this new season.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've already made the bold thing that it's Ole Miss's year. Like I said like a weeks ago, like, Ole
Oh,
Miss are making the playoffs this year. It's Lane Kiffin's time. But yeah, I say no Nick Saban. Like I say the quarterbacks are relatively all, I'd say, on a fairly level playing field. Like I say we saw a lot happen last year, but like I said, they're all gone. Like I say Michigan right now is in like a five-way quarterback tussle. I couldn't name you, I don't think five of them. Like I say, I literally don't know who is going to start them next year. So yeah, defending that crown this year, well, it's going to certainly be interesting.
yeah, and over the next few months before the college football season starts, because we're still about 80, 90 days away, there is lots of times to go. We are going to be breaking down all this stuff. We're going to be going through the conferences. We're going to be doing our prediction shows, our preseason teams, players to watch. There is going to be so much to digest, plenty of content to get out there. We've also got a few other shows penciled in for you as well, which has been good. We're going to be getting a great guest on. We're going to be talking about the nuances of the triple option offense, specifically with the Army Black Knights. Brent, I know you're going to love that one. So make no mistake, over these next few months, there's going to be a lot coming your way. And the first of those, the stop we always make before any others, the group of five conferences. They get forgotten about in the FBS. Everyone likes the big power teams. It's the Power Four this year, no more Pac-12, but still a lot of attention will be focused to those. The group of fives, the American, the Sun Belt, the CUSA, the MAC, the Mountain West. They don't get talked about as much, but on the show, we like to shine a light on them and their teams because there is a lot of talent. Maybe not this year. They'll transfer to bigger teams and you'll want to know about them before they get to where you are. So we always take a great deal of pride in doing that. And as you may know, if you do know your college football very well, we've entitled the show today The Flame of Liberty after the big architectural design over there in Paris. But we're going to be talking Liberty Flames, which means we're going to be talking about Conference USA for the third year in a row, our first stop on the path to the college football season. And we will be going through those teams. We will be deep diving them, like, how the players, how the teams did last year, contenders. And of course, we're going to put forward our own predictions about the conference as well. But first, before we get into all that, just get through all the housekeeping bits and bobs. So, our Discord, if you want in on the Roar of the Lions UK Discord, let us know, and we shall fire you a link across and get you involved in that. The main podcast yesterday, if this show comes out today, Matt and Ash and Ryan did a very good show. They did a NFC North round table with representatives from the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. A lot of NFC talk, a lot of smack talk. Great stuff. Do go check that out. It was really good. Don't forget to like and sub to everything, Twitch, YouTube, all that good stuff as well. And if you know any college football fans who are fans of the conferences we're going through, send them our way as well. Whichever week we're going to be talking about them. Don't forget about Lions Nation Unite, Herman Moore's pet project to bring together the best in Lions content creators over YouTube land. Lots of good guys on there, so please do support that. And don't forget, we're affiliated on Twitch. We're monetized on YouTube. We've got a tip jar, all that good sort of stuff. So if you want to help us that way, great. But we just love having you all in the building first and foremost. I apologize today if I ramble a bit. This is me doing my first show in 2 months. So we are just getting back into the swing of things here. But we are talking CUSA football today. So let us show love to the conference. So the CUSA, for those who don't know, founded in 1995, so going to be coming up on its 30th birthday the next season. The team roster for 2024, we've got 10 teams. We got the Florida International Panthers. We got the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. We've got the brand new out of the FCS Kennesaw State Owls. We've got the Liberty Flames, who are the current champions of the conference. We've got the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders, the New Mexico State Aggies, the Sam Houston Bearcats, the University of Texas El Paso Miners, more commonly known as UTEP, and the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. This league primarily spread throughout sort of the southeast of the US. So they've got the far western portions of New Mexico and Texas, and then you work your way along the southern coast and then up into Kentucky, Atlanta, that sort of area. Southeast-based league. League and alignment notes for this year. So, as I say, Kennesaw State, the Owls, they are new arrivals into the conference, so brand new team. It was just 9 teams last year. Jacksonville State and Sam Houston, they are now eligible for the CUSA title game after their FCS transition periods ended. They were both new last year, but they've only had to spend 1 year in to get their eligibility. And the conference is going to continue to grow in the future. In 2025, it'll be welcoming 2 new teams. You've got the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens, who I love because of the name, and the Missouri State Bears, who will be arriving in the conference as well. Just a quick start on CUSA, Ryan. One of the what we would call unsexy leagues amongst a lot out there. It had a massive exodus of teams to the American a couple of seasons ago, but adding more FCS talent there. And yes, we had a very big far and away winner in this conference last year, but just after, in that little sleuth of groups, it's actually a very competitive conference and a fun one to watch. But yeah, this is probably the lowest of the low when it comes to the FBS conferences.
Yeah, this has become part of the stepping stone now, like I said, from making the jump from the FCS to the FBS. I don't know if they see, actually, some teams look at it as easy and they can go in there and compete straight away. Some of them, it just makes sense geographically. It feels like a natural fit. A lot of SCS teams going up together to the same place, sticking together. I suppose there's security and safety in numbers. But yeah, we had a pretty strong runaway winner last year. But like I say, Jacksonville State weren't eligible, very competitive. Sam Houston started the year terribly and looked like it was too early. But in the end, back end of the season, kind of kicked on a little bit and found some momentum going into this year. So them both being eligible makes things interesting. Western Kentucky, in recent years, they've been up there as well with that high-powered brand of offense. So, yep, there's some interesting teams here. And then the additions, yeah, some quite interesting additions, like the Kennesaw State, a somewhat unknown entity, not had many high juggernaut years at the FCS, they've made the jump quite early. But I know Delaware, a playoff team, like they've had some good, strong winning seasons. They'll be joined, like say, this time next year. But yeah, it feels like this could be a conference that expands quite rapidly. Like I say, I think we're going to get a plethora now of FCS teams in the next 2 to 3 years, making the jump up. Like I say, even though the price has gone up, like I say, it went from what 5,000 to what 5 million. It's not put off these three teams already. They've found the cash, like I say, they've managed to make an allowance for it, and it's not bothered them. So yeah, it's tough sledding when you jump up. It's going to be difficult. Kennesaw State, the transition, it will be very hard. Like I say, they're a smaller team themselves, recruiting and that. But yeah, it gets easier. Like I say, you have to roll with the punches and lick your wounds for a couple of years, but eventually you do turn into a Liberty.
Exactly. It can be done. And yeah, I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see the emergence of a lot of exciting teams, and the CUSA could potentially be really good very quickly. They say that the Liberty did run away with it a bit last year, but that slew of teams behind, the kill squad at New Mexico State, he's made them relevant again. Jacksonville State going to keep doing well under Rich Rodriguez. But anywho, we're going to dive down into these teams and let you know sort of how they did in 2023. Just go over a few backstory bits with them, let you know the stats, and then we're going to take a look ahead at the teams this season and how they're looking. And we're going to show love to all the teams. Now, depending on how we do time-wise, we might split this down into two. We're going to get to 5 teams. We're going to see where we're at, and then we might break it down. Because when we did these last year, they got pretty long, and some of these bigger conferences, 14 teams, take a while. So we want to be able to not rush and show love to each individual team. So like I say, we're gonna dive straight down into it, Rye. You ready, Rye? Let's get this underway. We've got 134 teams in the FBS this year. Let's start getting through some of them. So first up, very first team of the year, we are going to be looking at the Florida International Panthers, established 2002. Located at the FIU Stadium, that is in Miami, Florida, so in a hotbed of the Florida recruiting scene down there. The big rivalry, most will know, with Florida Atlantic. It's nicknamed the Shula Bowl after the legendary Dolphins head coach Don Shula. It's a celebration of football in South Florida. Florida Atlantic lead that series 16-4. We're on a 6-game win streak at the minute. FIU are getting their ass kicked a little bit with it there. The series is on hold now, though. Florida Atlantic have moved to the American, but the series will resume this year for at least 4 more seasons. So it's had a small hiatus, but it's a very fiercely contested rivalry. As for FIU themselves, so the 2022 record, they were 4-8 overall, and they went 2-6 in the CUSA. In 2023, their record 4-8 overall, 1-7 in the CUSA. So same record, but slight regression last year. So coach Mike McIntyre, he is 59 years old. This is his 3rd season. He is a very highly tenured coach with NFL experience as well. He's a defensively minded head coach. He's been a defensive coordinator with UT Martin, Temple, Duke, Ole Miss, Memphis. He's been a DB's coach with the Jets and the Cowboys in the NFL. He's been a head coach for a long time now. Started in 2010 with the San Jose State Spartans. Did a complete rebuild job on that team within 3 years. He took a 1-win team in 2010, turned them to a 10-win team in 2012. Got him a job in the now defunct Pac-12 with Colorado on the back of this. He did have just 1 winning season in 7 years there, but the 1 season he had a winning season, he won Colorado his first ever Pac-12 South title, or their first ever Pac-12 South title. So not entirely in vain there. He's taken this Florida international job late in 2021. So he has taken on a major rebuilding job with the Panthers. But both his seasons so far seen very similar results. The team has been 4-4 after 8 games, both seasons, before losing out. The defense is ranked 120th and 119th out of 131 and 133 respectively. They shipped 166 points in the last 4 games of 2023, giving up 40 plus points in every game. Just 3 conference wins in 2 years. And now this is the first real year of him having his own roster. When you're in college, you can blame the first 2 years maybe on the regime below you, getting your own players in. This is his first year where he's got no excuse going forward. This, Ryan, it's a very difficult job that he's walked into, shown promise both seasons, but got to try and find something in that second half of the year and start turning these losing seasons into bowl seasons.
Yeah, I suppose when you look at his age and recent records, it feels like last chance saloon. A former DB coach and defensive coordinator, but there's a game where he conceded 39. So 5 games out of the season, he conceded basically on average 40 points. As a defensive-minded coach, that's slightly alarming. So I think it's right to be worried for a fan. Like I say, this might be the year where things don't improve. You might move on from. Like I say, the overall record won't probably be what cost him. It will be the record in conference. Like I say, to go what 3-13 across the last 2 years in the conference makes you the whipping boys, and that's kind of hard to swallow as a fan. So they start off okay. They build some momentum in the middle, but why are they running out of steam? Why are they losing the last 4 games and back-to-back seasons? What is it like when it goes to they're nearly bowl eligible at 4-4? It's kind of like on the horizon. What goes wrong? It's 2 seasons in a row now, so it's kind of hard to see him not keeping his job without getting a bowl game. He needs at least 6 wins, and like I say, even then it might not be enough. But yeah, this is going to feel like it's going to be a really difficult year. But yeah, if it's going to come together, it's going to be now. Like I said, after this 2.5, 3 years, where like you say, he's kind of putting his stamp on things, getting things where he wants to be. We'll see the fruits of his labor right now if they're going to come together or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably should have just said before we do these previews, just the way it's going to go with them, going to let you know where they are, some of the rivalries, the records from the last 2 years, just to see how the team have been doing over the last couple of years, give you an overall picture, talk about the coach. Then a new little feature I've done this year, we're going to talk about the players who were drafted, if there were any, or when they were last drafted, and when the last time the Lions drafted a player from one of these teams. Then we're going to go through the results from 2023, the rankings, stats wise, and then we're going to go into the previews, look at the quarterback, the offense, the defense, and then we'll go through the schedule and to finish off the player on the team to watch. So, in terms of the draft prospects from Florida International, no players were drafted in 2024. You have to go back to 2020 when they last had players drafted. That was quarterback James Morgan, drafted by the Jets, and the DB Stanley Thomas Oliver was drafted by Carolina, both in the 2020 draft. As for the Lions, we've not actually drafted a player from Florida International yet, so who knows? This may be the year. In terms of the 2023 results, so started off in conference against Louisiana Tech on the road. They lost 22-17. Then they had 3 wins in a row. They beat Maine at home, 14-12, North Texas at home, 49-39, and on the road to UConn, they won 24-17. Then they had 3 losses in a row at home to Liberty, away at New Mexico State, both teams who were in the championship game, and at home to UTEP. Then they won on the road to Sam Houston, 33-27, but it did take 2 overtimes to beat them there. And then they lost out the last 4 games at home to Jacksonville State, 41-16. Away at Middle Tennessee State, 40-6. At Arkansas in the SEC, 44-20. And versus Western Kentucky, 41-28. So say at 1 point 4-4, but then it went a bit iggledy-piggledy. In terms of their rankings, total offense, they were 111th, 320 yards per game. Total defense, they were 119th. They gave up nearly 440 yards per game. The scoring offense was 115th, just 20 points per game on average they scored. And the scoring defense was 107th. They gave up on average 32 points per game. The rushing offense was 124th, just 90 yards per game on the ground, but they did have 17 touchdowns. Rushing defense was 111th. They gave up 192 yards per game and 31 touchdowns. Passing offense was 58th, a little better, 230 yards per game and 12 touchdowns. The passing defense was 98th. It's 246 yards per game and 26 touchdowns given up. As for the D-line stuff, sacks, they were 122nd. They only had 17 on the year. Tackles for loss, though, they were 42nd. They had 72. In terms of against sacks allowed, they were 124th. They gave up 46 sacks on the year, and tackles for loss allowed, they were 103rd. They gave up 81. And turnover margin, they were 121st. They gained 12 turnovers, but they lost 21. And you kind of go through that, Ryan. It's not hard to see where the issues were here. Both sides of the ball, there were issues outside of the passing attack. Like on the offense, it's pretty good, but there's just improvement needed all over on this team.
Yeah, nearly all of the rankings were in three figures, and that's bad because there's only 136 teams, 134 teams. So yeah, it looks like they passed the ball downfield and then they punched it in at the goal line because they get so few rushing yards but have loads of rushing touchdowns. So they must have got down like 2 or 3, hammer it in. So yeah, the stats are very lopsided. Like I say, I think the most worrying one probably is their offensive line. 46 sacks allowed. That is a worrying when you only generate 17. If you take 46 sacks in a season, you are not generating any offense. You will be punting a lot, and that's why I probably lost 21 turnovers. So, offensive line, it looks like it will be the life and the death of them. Like I say, we've had these rankings going. Tackles for loss is pretty good. So they're able to get in the backfield and behind line of scrimmage and make plays. But it's the big explosive plays clearly that hurt them. Like I say, total defense giving up 437 yards per game, but also getting lots of tackles for losses. You're not getting them off the field, so they must be on first and second down. And then they're recovering, giving up big plays on third and fourth down, and that just can't happen. That's not a way you can manage a team. You'll just never survive like that.
No, absolutely not. Like you just can't get anywhere. Like I said, when both your units of your offense and defense are in the hundreds, you're going to be having trouble winning games of football because one side isn't going to carry you going forward. And this the offensive line, it was tough, and that's a shame because we're going to move on to their prospects for year 3 now, their 2024 season preview. And as I say, we're going to do the quarterback, then we're going to do the offense, then we're going to do the defense. And as far as quarterback goes, they've actually got not a bad one here. So the presumed starting quarterback for this year, I'm assuming it's going to be him, Keon Jenkins. He is a senior this year, the probable starter. He's 5'11", 192 pounds. This is going to be his second season. He's a very local prospect. He's from Miami Central High School. He won the starting job last year as a freshman, he'll be a sophomore this year. He won the job as a freshman last year, supplanting Grayson James, who we thought was going to be the starter on the preview last year. But no, Keon Jenkins came in and got him, but very much a trial by fire year. So he went 192 of 331, which is 58% on his passing, 2,416 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He had 239 rushing yards, and he led the team with rushing touchdowns with 6. So like you said, right, get the ball down to the line, but you use your quarterback to punch it in there. So he's not a dual threat per se, but he's a danger with his legs in the red zone. He did have 15 fumbles with the ball, so 26 overall turnovers. But as we always say, that's not an uncommon problem for first-time starters. And he was a freshman starter, so that can be forgiven. And as we mentioned, his offensive line gave up 46 sacks. Only 6 teams in the entire FBS gave up more sacks than that. So he's under a ton of pressure and starting for the first time. And then all of a sudden, that 60% passing, 2,500 yards, starts to look pretty respectable. He's one of the more intriguing CUSA quarterback prospects this year. By all accounts, he's been bulking up. I think he's over 200 pounds now, but he was quite light before. If he can take that next step forward, we will be hearing the name more frequently going forward into 2025. The offensive coordinator there is David Yost. He's been quarterback coach to Blaine Gabbert, Justin Herbert, and Jordan Love, and other future NFL starters in their collegiate days as well. So they've got an OC there who can use him, but This is a very tough situation for a freshman quarterback to come in, Ryan. You know, a lot of turnovers and that, but actually, it's not that bad a job considering he was getting hit all year, under pressure all year, and he's working with very little. They might have found a good guy there with him, and he stayed.
Yeah. I'd be worried if a quarterback was turning the ball over behind an offensive line that was keeping him up and giving him a pocket. Then you're worried. But when you're behind one of the worst offensive lines in the nation, frankly, I expect you to turn the ball over because you're running for your life, or you've got people in your passing lanes, you've got tip balls, or you've got guys just coming through and just blowing you up, and then you're going to fumble. So the kid's got talent, like you say. The turnovers, we saw it with Jared Goff in year one of Lions. How many times did he fumble? A lot, and it was really frustrating. But the next year in the offense, in the scheme, trusting his offensive lineman a little bit more. Like I said, they trust him a little bit more. They know what kind of time he needs in the pocket. Those things are quite quickly cleared up. Like I said, if he takes away 10 of those turnovers, probably a couple more wins behind him. So yeah, bulk up a little bit just in case he's gonna take some hits. But yeah, like I say, he was pretty productive in an offense that really was never firing on all cylinders all year. So yeah, I've got a lot of hope to believe that he can be someone that can lead this offense down the field. He just needs the big men in front of him to just hold their own a little bit more and just leave it all out there for him. And I think he will have a better season and he will have more touchdowns than interceptions this year. I like to say a far less fumbles. And yeah, it could be a 3,000 passing yard quarterback this year.
You could do. And it's, you know, it's the best point to give yourself a base going forward. You got a quarterback, life is a lot easier, and he's shown that he can do it. So Keon Jenkins is a starter there. We'll move on to the offense. And before this is our first offense we're covering, I have scoured for weeks and weeks. I have done lots of research on this, trying to find make sure the players are there. There was another portal, make sure no one's gone. So this is all the up-to-date knowledge I have. If you hear a team or a player and you think that's not quite right, unfortunately, I won't not get everything 100% right with these, but I have done as much work as physically possible to make sure these are as accurate as possible. So we move on to their offense. The offensive coordinator already mentioned David Yost, quarterback guru in college circles. Offensive line this year is going to be a work in progress. And we talk about how bad they were last year. So just for the record, last year, the left tackle was a first-year FCS transfer from Gardner-Webb. The left guard was a first-year starter. The center was a second-year guy, but he got suspended in season. The right guard was a first-year starter, and the right tackle was a first-year starter as well. So kind of goes to show the lack of cohesion they had last year. The right tackle, Philip Houston, has transferred to Colorado. The center, as I mentioned, John Bock II, he is banned for a calendar year for taking an illegal substance, which means he's going to miss the first 10 games of this season. But the other three starters are back. And going into year two, hopefully you will see exponential growth from experience off the bat. And hopefully the reserve center can come in, make things a little bit better. The season's a long way off, and a lot of things can change. But currently the line projects as the left tackle is going to be Travis Burke. He's got 1,500 snaps at both tackle positions combined for Florida International and Gardner-Webb. You've got Nair Jackson at left guard. He's going to be a second-year starter now for FIU. The center's going to be Ming Tion. He is the relief center there. He had 360 snaps last year in relief. The right guard is Wyatt Lawson. He's a fourth-year Florida International guy. It'll be second year as a starter. The right tackle spot is open. They've hit the portal hard for reinforcements here. They've got in Jaleel Davis from NC State, who I believe is the favorite to get it. You've got Jakavion Nonar from Maryland. So you've got a couple of Power 5 guys in who've not played that much, but you know, some of these guys can take to G5 football right away. They've also bought in Ben Schellenbach from Division II Tusculum. He's an experienced starter. He's a big guy. He's 6'5", 300 pounds. So they've got some options on there. And hopefully with the experience going forward, they'll be able to protect Keon Jenkins a little bit more. The running back room, now that's got some serious potential despite the low output last year. Again, you see the O-line not giving it much of a chance. But you've got Shamari Lawrence. He had 592 yards at 4.8 yards a carry. You've got Keon Owens. He had 453 yards at 5.6 yards per carry. And they get the return of Lexington Joseph this year. He missed all of 2023 with an ACL tear, but he was coming off a 600-yard season prior to that. So you've actually got three legitimate threats paired with the red zone threat that the QB possesses. All of a sudden, your running back room doesn't look too bad going into this year if you can give it room to breathe. In the receiver room, you got the star wide receiver, Chris Mitchell. He's transferred to Notre Dame. He had 1,100 yards last season. No one else had over 430. So you're not bringing an established starter back, but you're not without hope. You've got Dean Patterson and Eric Rivers, who come back. They were both rotational guys. They had over 800 yards between the pair of them, and the Panthers, they've hit the portal hard as well. And you've got some very intriguing prospects coming in this year. You've got the huge 6'5", 220-pound ex-receiver Desna Washington from New Mexico. He had 350 yards and 3 touchdowns on a bad Lobos team last year. He actually had Power 4 offers on the table from UCF and Colorado, so bit of a get there from him. You've got Nazivia Burris. He's making the step up from the Pioneer League team Stetson. He's a speedy 5'11", 181-pound outside receiver threat. And you've got a hometown kid coming home, Juju Lewis. He comes from Georgia Tech after 2 years. He's not played a game, but he's 6'2". He's 216 pounds. Add depth to the room, but they've got to find some receivers this year. As for the tight ends, the entire room is back. Led by Air Force transfer Rocky Beers. He's entering his second season as a Panther. Not a huge ton of production out of him there, but the tight end room is very young there. It's a developing stable, so hopefully you will see that improve as well. So you kind of have the makings there, right, on the offense. Like you say, you've got the quarterback. That's the main thing. Offensive line doesn't always happen, but the more experience they get, the more they work together, you generally see the production go up. You've got a lot of guys who've been there now. You've got a good running back room. You need to find some receivers, but the mix is there to be successful with.
Yeah. Offensive lines usually always trend in the right direction. The more time they play together, like I say, they become a more cohesive unit. And what they lack in overall production, they have talent. They have, I suppose, big name school kids that have come here, probably want some playing time. Like I say, they probably thought this is a good way to get back on the field, and they will benefit from that. Like I say, the portal guys can come in here, and even if it's just for a year, they can do a job. Like you say, and whether they hit the portal again in a year because they've had a really good season, so be it. But right now, they do need weapons. So if they only come here for a year and use it as a stopgap, then so be it. It could be a good year. It's a mix of experience and also some guys that have talent potential but lack any experience. So there could be some real dark horses here. Someone collectively, they've got to step together to replicate what Chris Mitchell did. But 2 or 3 of them should be able to do that. It's not out of the depth that all of them just have good years. No one needs to be that star guy, as long as, like you say, Keon is able to spread the ball around a bit.
Exactly. And the great thing is they've not been ripped to the foundation. They've not lost a ton of the starters to the portal. So growth with youth, hopefully will be the thing for them with their offense. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball. The defensive coordinator is Jovan DeWitt. He's entering his second year. As we mentioned, the defense has been bad the last 2 years. And this is where the portal really banjaxes it for them. They lose a lot of their best guys. So the defensive line's taken 3 significant hits. They've lost their star defensive tackle, Jordan Guerrad. He transferred to the Power 4 with Louisville. The starting nose tackle, Jack Daly, headed to the NFL. And the sack leader, although it was just 3, the edge, Alex Nobels, ran out of eligibility. Linebacker room lost a starter in Donovan Manuel, who's with the Vikings in the NFL, or he was last time I checked. And Avery Huff transferred. So they've looked down the college football tree in the portal for replacements this time. But the one thing they do well, they do develop good talent from the FCS and JUCO. So a few of these guys they've got the monster 6'5", 310-pound defensive tackle Cole Gustafson. He arrives from the American River Beavers to help try and fill that gap at nose tackle. He had 3 sacks and 7 tackles for loss last year. So he's a big guy, but he can get in the backfield as well. You've got a really intriguing edge prospect in Eddie Walls III. He's come from Bethune-Cookman. From HBCU football. He had a 5-sack, 38 pressure season last year, also nearly grading up elite as a run defender. And they also got in the edge Giovanni Davis, who comes in from UT Davis as well. So really going after the FCS guys to beef up that line. They do have some homegrown talent. The edge Jeremy Passmore, he had a few good plays last year. I think he was second in their sacks department there. So it's kind of an higgledy-piggledy mix of guys on there. You got new recruits, depth guys, red shirts, etc. So it really very much is wait and see what happens. But they've really gone after the FCS to try and fix those issues there. The linebacker room, though, it's in a good position. It's led by the starter Reggie Peterson, supplemented by Northern Colorado transfer Elijah Anderson Taylor, who I mentioned last year. I thought last year was going to be his big year, but he's taken a year to bed into that team. But he's probably going to move into a starting role in his second year there. They've also gone lower down the FCS to get some more reinforcements. The inside linebacker Travion Barnes arrives from the Georgia Military Bulldogs. And you've got another highly productive inside linebacker coming from JUCO. So that's Dwight Nuno. He arrives from Dodge City Community College. So again, you've got a couple of starters in there. You've got some new backups from the FCS. The secondary is the most intact unit, and it actually fronted by a very impressive corner pairing. So you've got Hezekiah Massers and you've got Brian Blades. And if someone's thinking of the name Blades, yes, he is part of that family. He is son of the Seattle wide receiver Brian. He is nephew of Detroit Lions safety Benny Blades, one of the most underrated Lions players of all time. He's in that family. Starting safety Deverick Daniel ran out of eligibility, but they've got 2 starters coming back with Jamal Potts and CJ Christian. The depth behind is solid. So if the D-line ups its game, this will be a very dangerous secondary to throw against. So again, right, you kind of, when a unit's that bad, you have to tear it down a bit, but they've got a lot of impressive guys up from the FCS. They've got some good homegrown guys in there. We got a Detroit Lions connection in there as well. That secondary is actually quite good when it's given a chance. So it's going to be wait and see, but again, shoots of optimism there for the team.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing that they're rebuilding that defensive line. He did only muster, 17 sacks. Like I said, all them tackles for loss, but yeah, they've brought in guys that have coming in with, like, say, 4 or 5 sack seasons last year. And that's what they need. They need guys, like, they don't need a guy that goes out there and get 20 sacks, but they need people that can consistently generate pressure and can, like, say, collectively come together with 2025. And the -9 turnover differential, that will get closer to 0 the more pressure they get on quarterbacks. Because their defensive backs, like you say, they've got a good secondary. They will get more time to operate. Like I say, they will have time to get more coverage sacks, more, like you say, hurried throws that will lead to interceptions and turnovers. So yeah, it all starts up front with the big men, and they've brought a lot of new faces in. One of them will hit the ground running. If one of them has a stellar year, like I say, everyone else is just able to, like, kind of mop up. I'd like to think they could add 5-10 sacks onto that, and that will bring that negative turnover balance. Like I say, won't be positive, most likely, but more neutral, back to 0. A 0 turnover, like, differential is never a bad thing.
No, exactly. So that kind of seems to be the overall emphasis with this team. But they've got the parts they need. I say, when you got a quarterback, that helps. You got a lot of new reinforcements on defense. You got to hope you can make strides forward with that. So it is not without hope for the Florida International Panthers this year. But how does their schedule stack up? How do we see them doing? So the schedule, they got 6 home games, 6 away games. So the non-con slate to start the season, they're away at Indiana from Big Ten. They're at home to Central Michigan. They're away at Florida Atlantic in the Shula Bowl. And then they play FCS opposition with Monmouth. Then they start the CUSA campaign. They're at home to Louisiana Tech. Then they're going to bye. Then they're away at Liberty and UTEP. Then they're at home to Sam Houston and New Mexico State. They get the second bye. Then they're away to Jacksonville State. They're away to Kennesaw State. And then they finish at home to Middle Tennessee. So obviously Shula Bowl is going to be great for them there. But you look at the home slate, right? Louisiana Tech, we're going to talk about them a lot later because they let us down last year. Sam Houston, New Mexico State lost Jerry Kill. Middle Tennessee State, they've lost Rick Stockstill. You're away at Kennesaw State. You're away at UTEP. They're not good teams. The schedule feels like it gives them an opportunity if they're able to take it.
Yeah. They're going to have to, ideally, they need to be winning all their home games. I know it's easier said than done, but there's some hard trips like opening to Indiana. Right, okay, you can chalk that one off. That won't matter, like you say. But yeah, going to Florida Atlantic's not easy. Liberty, UTEP, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, like you say, that's the 11th game. So by now they're probably either winding down and crawling to the finish line, or they're like fully firing on all cylinders. You don't know which team you're going to get. So yeah, the start is quite difficult because Monmouth, good FCS team. The Hawks are a good side, and they've sent some players to draft in recent years. So yeah, they're doing well. But yeah, if they can keep it together by the bye, like I say, then they've got chances, like I say, with Sam Houston, UTEP, to try pick up some wins, and if they can finish strong with Kennesaw State and MTSU. So yeah, it's going to be in stages. So yeah, there's 6 winnable games there. Like I said, there's a bowl game there if they want it. It's just going to be how quickly can they start and hit the ground running. Like I say, because your season can't win everything in the first 5, but you can kind of do damage and lose it all if they start. So they're going to have to hit the ground running, because we've seen in recent years, like I say, they do start really well, finish poorly. Like I say, so with a bye in those last 3 games, 2 of them on the road, they cannot be doing that this year because they've got a hard last stretch after the bye, 2 out of 3 on the road. So yeah, they've got to make another good start.
They do. And the buys help them. They have stretches of 5 games, 4 games, 3 games. So they're kind of
Good
nicely
break.
spread.
Yeah.
Yeah, nicely spread. So your team's not going to get too bad, hopefully. So there's a lot potentially to like there about that schedule, but we'll see. As for to finish this off, the player to watch for me, I'm going to double down because I did this last year and it didn't come to fruition. I hit on a lot of these guys last year. So Elijah Anderson Taylor, the guy I'm really looking for on this team. 6 foot, 238 pounds. He's the linebacker. So he was an absolute tackling machine who was snapped up in the transfer portal from Northern Colorado in 2022. He had 1 starting season there. He had over 100 tackles on the season, 7.5 tackles for loss, 5 forced fumbles. He's a real ball hawk with the nose for the ball in the ground, in the air. McIntyre courted him before he came out of high school. He's had his year to bed in now and learn the system. I think he's primed to break out as a starter this year. And this team, more than anything, needs someone who's going to take ownership of the middle of that defense, help against the run, make some tackles in the backfield. This is what they brought him in for. He's had his year to get bedded in. Elijah Anderson Taylor, for me, is going to have a big year for the FIU Panthers. So that is it for them. First team in the books. Let's move it on. Next, we are going to the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, established 1904. They play at the Burgess Snowfield in Jacksonville, Alabama. In terms of the rivalries, they've got in-state rivalries against the Samford Bulldogs and the Troy Trojans, but both are currently on hold due to current conference alignment issues. In terms of the records for the teams, in 2022, they were 9-2 overall. They were 5-0 in the ASUN, that's the Atlantic Sun Conference in the FCS. Last year, first season in the FBS. So in the 2023, how did they do? They went 9-4 overall, and they finished 6-2 in the CUSA, losing only to the 2 sides who made the championship game. Their coach, Michigan fans will know him well, Rich Rodriguez. He is 60. He is in his 3rd season there. And like I say, he's going to be known to Michigan. He's had a very interesting career. He's had disciplinary issues in charge of West Virginia, Michigan, and Arizona, but he's also had a lot of success, specifically with West Virginia and Arizona. He has this no-huddle run version of the spread offense, which is highly dangerous. And a lot of teams just can't defend against it. He's also been a successful coordinator on multiple teams as well. So it's experienced as they will get. Michigan fans will remember him for having the worst winning record in team history. He got swept for 3 years in a row by Ohio State and Michigan State and ended the longest active bowl streak on record at the time. So not fondly remembered there. He arrived at Jacksonville State in 2021. He took over a team that had won 9 or more games every year since 2014. They've been wildly successful down there. So that first 9-2 season in the ASUN was nothing special. And we said as much last year. He took off a good team. The question was, could he replicate the success when moving up to the FBS against better opposition? And the early returns are suggesting that he might just be onto something with the Gamecocks here. As I say, the only 2 defeats came against the 2 teams who competed in the championship games, and then road games to South Carolina, who play in the SEC, and Coastal Carolina, who are a Sun Belt heavyweight. They actually nearly beat South Carolina on the road, if you remember that game. It took a pick 6 with less than 2 minutes left to put the Gamecocks down. So 9 wins and an additional bowl win, meaning they got 10 wins on the year. In year 1 of an FBS debut, it's a very impressive return, but the team is also learning that when you do well in the group of 5, the draft and the portal are going to hit you in equal measure, creating a lot of problems that you've got to sort out. But he's just been given a new contract till 2030, right? We wondered, how are these FCS teams going to take? And Jacksonville State, I mean, what a season. I remember watching that South Carolina game where they so nearly beat them, but the spread, no huddle, run offense, it's something to behold, and he's got it working like clockwork.
Yeah, he put some teams to the sword last year. They're able to score quickly and heavily, and they make life easy for their defense because they're able to just grind games out, control the clock, score and splash plays, and by the time they give the ball back to defense, they just have to hold their own, not do anything silly. So it's a team that is very much on the forefront of leading on offense. They want to control the clock, the momentum, and they want to keep their offense on the field as long as possible or score as quickly as possible, like saying rack up scores here. Rich Rodriguez is known for a lot of offensive football throughout his coaching period. Like I said, I remember a very good, strong period with the Arizona Wildcats where they were scoring quite heavily on offense and he was trying to make them very competitive at a time. But yeah, he's not remade the wheel. He's not done a lot different here. He's carried on the tradition of a team that wins a lot of games. He's now just found a recipe for doing it at the next level against better competition and going against, like I say, some much better opposition. Like I said, he picked some good on what they did last year. They faced some strong teams on that resume. And like I say, even in losses, competed really well for the best part. So yeah, they'll come out of them a lot of confidence. And they'll fancy themselves to try and do it again this year, and now they're eligible.
Exactly. A lot of the teams up around you are undergoing change this year at the head coach position, and it's there to be had. So great start off year for them. How can they follow it up? So in terms of the little draft section, they didn't actually have anyone drafted in 2024, had some UDFAs. The last player the team had drafted was the defensive back Siran Neal. He was taken by Buffalo in the 2018 draft. In terms of the Detroit Lions, you've got to go back a bit further. So the last Jacksonville State player drafted by the Detroit Lions was the offensive tackle Jim Glasgow in 1960. Very long time ago. We took him at pick 159. In terms of 2023, the results first up started with 2 wins. They beat UTEP and East Tennessee State at home. They then lost on the road to Coastal Carolina. They beat Eastern Michigan at home, 21-0. That ruined my day because I'm a Crate Train fan. Then they won on the road to Sam Houston, although it took overtime. They won on the road to Middle Tennessee State, 45-30. They lost at home to Liberty 31-13, but everybody lost to Liberty. They beat Western Kentucky at home 20-17. Then they won away at FIU 41-16. Then that game against South Carolina, they lost it 38-28, but they were driving to win that game with 2 minutes to go. They could have. Then they won at home to Louisiana Tech 56-17. Then they lost on the road to New Mexico State only by 3 points, 2017. Then they finished the season with a win over the Louisiana Raging Cajuns in overtime, 34-31. So, like, signature wins there, right? Western Kentucky at home, Louisiana at home. They're a good Sun Belt team, or were. A lot to like there.
Yeah, they either blow you away or they kind of like make life hard for themselves and kind of hang on in the end. Those two things. But yeah, they blanked Eastern Michigan, good MAC team. Like I said, they were taking overtime twice, but in the end, they were able to outlast them teams, which shows a lot of resilience. But yeah, some big wins against some really good sides.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of their rankings, so the annoying thing, the NCAA website doesn't list the FCS transfer team stats from last year, even though they were in the FBS. So I kind of had to go to the team website to do this. So total offense, they were 48th with 407.7 yards per game. Total defense, they were 42nd with 352.8 yards per game. So top 50 units, both sides of the ball. Scoring offense, they were 49th with 30 points per game scored. The scoring defense, it was 32nd, only 21 points per game given up. The rushing offense, third in the nation, 236.7 yards per game with 35 rushing touchdowns. And their rushing defense was 14th in the nation, 111 yards per game given up and just 14 touchdowns on the ground. The passing offense was 121st with 180 yards per game. The passing defense was 95th, 230 yards per game. In sacks, they had 38. They were 14th in the nation. It was the most in the CUSA by 7, even Liberty. Sacks allowed just 16, although I couldn't find where that ranked. Turnover margin was +5. They gained 25. They lost 20, but it's not very difficult to see, right, where this team beat people. Trench warfare, both sides of the ball, absolutely dominated. Healthy turnover differential, just enough in the pass game. Top 50 units, both sides of the ball. That's what you get.
Yep. Like I said, the offensive line made holes for the running backs, who then went on and just gashed teams, and the defensive line just hammered opposing quarterbacks, and that's how they got through those overtime and those like 3-point games. Sacks that killed drives led to punts, or they held teams to field goals by getting in behind the play negatives. Yeah, their offensive line and their defensive line really were the heart and soul of the team last year. Everything went through them. They stifled other teams' offenses, and they were able to control the clock by having one of the best rushing offenses in the country. They were able to sustain drives, drain clock, force teams to make timeouts, and in the end, by the time the opponent team got the ball back, there just wasn't enough time for them to mount a comeback, even in those games where they kind of won by the skin of their teeth, like I say, because they good clock management, and that comes through teams that can run the ball really well, and an passing offense that, yeah, fine. Like I say, it was one of those where it wasn't great, but it didn't have to do a lot because they could protect the ball because they run it so well. They don't have to take risks in the passing game.
Yeah, exactly. You see a lot of extremes. If the rushing stats are extreme, then the passing ones are likely to be as well. Not because they're good or they're bad, just because one side of the ball dominates so much. But overall, a very impressive season from Jacksonville State. But how do things look going into 2024 with them? So it starts with the quarterback, and here's where the issues start. So this is undecided as of now. They did have the 7-year veteran Zion Webb at the helm last year, but he is finally out of eligibility after playing most of his adult life, apparently, in that job. And there is a big old power struggle going on in the aftermath of him leaving. So you had the Nebraska transfer, Logan Smothers. He saw action as Webb's backup last season. He had 731 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. But they've brought in UConn transfer Zion Turner. He took the first snaps of the spring game with the first team before some others came in. You've got the redshirt freshman Caden Creel, who saw time with the first team as well. You've got Tayshawn Smoot, who was the starter before, well, he was a starter when Webb was injured the season before last. He's still on the roster. And then you've got the arrival of the Furman starting quarterback, Tyler Huff, who's just about to join the team and set to muddy the water further. So this may not be decided for some time. I don't know whether you've watched Paladins football much, but I mean, Zion Turner, he lost the job to that main transfer at UConn last year. There's a lot of mouths in here. There's going to be a lot of competition, but maybe the FCS transfer gets it.
There's a chance, yeah. Them and Paladins, like you say, they were one of those teams that was always thereabouts, trying to be in the top 25, trying to make a playoff team, a late rush, or get in the playoffs. Yeah, they pose a good offense. But yeah, there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen. Sometimes that's a bad thing. Sometimes someone will emerge. It feels like it could take a couple of games into the season to really see who's got it. I reckon you're probably going to see a few of them take snaps in a game before they really know. So it could be a slow start to the season, but it's never easy to replace a quarterback that's been around best part of a decade. Ideally, you like to have their successor in beforehand, but he's been that good, they've not really thought that far into the future. So, yeah, it's either going to be a disaster or it's going to be like, say, their offense, their system is that good, it can incorporate any kind of style of quarterback. So, it's going to be very interesting to see who does win the job and how many different quarterbacks we see on how many different drives.
Yeah, I mean, with the run heavy system, sometimes you use multiple guys. You have sort of run
That takes
specific
pressure off a
quarterbacks in.
quarterback, knowing your offense. If they can run the ball well, it
Yeah.
will ease them in a little better.
Yeah, I tried looking around. It doesn't seem they've settled on a start yet. So this is going to rumble on for a good old time. But it's not only quarterback where they need new answers. So let's start with the offense. The offensive coordinator is Rod Smith. This is his third year with the team, so he's been there as long as Rich has. Running backs, heart and soul of this team. This is what they're all about. And right now, they don't have that many. So their lead rusher from last year, the Louisiana Monroe transfer, Malik Jackson, he went to the NFL. He had a 900-yard season. Zion Webb, the quarterback, he had 700 yards. He's done as well. And then in spring training, the heir apparent Ron Wiggins, he entered the transfer portal. He had 470 yards and 6 touchdowns last year and was thought to be the guy this year, but he's gone. So that leaves Amwar Lewis. Very intriguing. He was the guy we highlighted last year as a breakout candidate because he had 800 yards in the last ASUN season, but he went into rotation last year. He had 450 yards. He had 3 touchdowns. He showed he can be a lead back, but it looks like he's going to be the guy this year now. But the only guy behind him on the depth chart right now is the redshirt junior, Ty Wayman. He's not taken a single snap for the team yet. So they need some more running backs. They've got some high school recruits coming in, Justice Savage, Andre Devine. So we might see some of these guys sooner rather than later if they can't get anyone else out of the portal. And we may also see an interesting use of hybrids. They got a lot of hybrids on this team. So you've got the UAB transfer wide receiver, Samario Rudolph. So he's been training in spring as a hybrid running back wide receiver. He's also got big return numbers as well. So he might be priming for a key role in this offense, especially in the backfield. The 2023 wide receiver room has similarly been drained. Leading receivers Perry Carter and Quinton Lane both headed to the NFL draft. They lost rotational guy Sterling Golban to UMass in the portal. The 2 best returning producers they have are the outside wide receivers PJ Wells and Michael Petway, but they've got 1,500 yards, receiving yards in 8 combined seasons at Jacksonville State. So not very many in the grand scheme of things, but help has come from the portal. So as mentioned, Samario Rudolph's come from UAB. You've got Brennan Spector, the brother of Balin Spector, who we've talked about enough. He's come in from Clemson. But they're both 5th-year guys. and no one's truly broken out just yet. They did also bring in the intriguing, again, hybrid running back wide receiver, DeMarcus Lacey from North Alabama. He's got 1,400 yards of offense over his first 2 seasons in college. And then you've got about half a dozen redshirt freshmen coming back and a few other redshirts from other classes as well. So this is very much a wait and see who rises to the top group. Tight end room does have an established stud, though. You've got Sean Brown. He's 6'5", 200 pounds. He's a dual threat who's just as good catching touchdowns as he is blocking in the trenches. He had 5 touchdowns last year, and his blocking grades were really good for one of the FBS's premier run games. He was on the Mackey Award watch list for 2023, which is for best tight end in college football. Likely will be in 2024 as well. And all the depth behind him is back. So potential there in the tight end room. As for the offensive line, this is where the true star resides, and he's going to be the guy I'm standing all season. You've got the former 5-star recruit, #1 prospect from Alabama in the 2019 high school recruit class. Georgia transfer Clay Webb is the best player in the CUSA, maybe the entire group of 5. He lines up at left guard. He's 6'3", 290 pounds. He specializes in causing havoc to defensive lines through sheer domination. He's only given up 6 pressures in over 500 pass blocking snaps, as well as that, he's got so much talent. He's so good. He's so dominant. He should be on everyone's radar as a group of 5 prospect who's going to get drafted high in 2025. And by high, I think he could potentially day 1. He is really that good. They're rebuilding issues on the line around him, though. They lost the starting right tackle Xavier Bowsley to West Virginia and the starting center Traylon Brown to the draft. But they got the left tackle back, Willow Steen. They got the right guard, Brock Roby, back. So you've got 3 starters in place. They've not really gone to the portal for help. Again, there's a clutch of redshirt freshmen, younger guys who've been in the system for a while now, who will be the source of the next group of starters for them. They did get one guy. They got the right tackle Cam Jones from Cincinnati. He's 6'8" and 330 pounds. He's not seen much power for football, but a lot of potential there for him. So, I mean, this is kind of a different thing now for Jacksonville State. You've got bona fide studs on your offensive line. Your running back room is very thin. Your quarterbacks are thin. Your wide receivers, you're trying to find someone. This is the price of being successful. You lose a lot of guys, and it's all about how do you replace them.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. Like I say, their trenches are set, but at skill position, it's really going to be a kind of like a mix and match to start the year. Like I said, they've got the offense and the style they want to be in. Who can fit in that best, and who can give them the best opportunity to, under quarterback, just keep the ball protected and then like chip away, like saying which running team. It's probably going to be a running back by committee. Are they able to replicate those crazy rushing numbers again using these kind of guys that are, like I say, jack of all trades, master of none? There'll be no true lead back. It's going to be changing a lot of them because they all bring a lot of things. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be such a juggernaut of an offense last year. Replicating that on paper with who they've got, it probably looks impossible. Like I said, they're going to have to just do the better. Like I said, they're not going to be as high powered maybe as they was last year, but even a good offense for them is more than enough to win games. So yeah, they've got what they need on the offensive line. It's just going to be, can they get the skill position guys that they've picked out of the portal to come in, hit the ground running fairly quickly?
Yeah, it seems like there's going to be a lot of finesse with it this year. Like I say, a lot of multi-position players, a lot of trickery, etc. So, but the system's good if they can find the guys. But yeah, we'll see with them. But when I say I'm not joking with just how good Clay Webb is, he's absolutely amazing. He only lost out at Georgia because he couldn't get in the team, but like Georgia offensive line's been ridiculously good. So yeah, moving on to the defense when I can get there. So the defense, the defensive coordinator is Luke Olson. This is his first year, so they've got a new defensive coordinator in town. They lost former guy Zach Alley. He moved to Oklahoma to become co-DC of the Sooners. So great defense, your talent, even in the coaching positions, gets taken. Olsen spent 11 years with Tulsa in various defensive roles before spending last year at TCU as a defensive analyst. But Tulsa's always been a good defense. He's had a lot of success there. But he's going to have to deal without J-State's crown jewel on defense, the edge Chris Hardy. 31 tackles for loss and 14 sacks over the last 2 years, but he's hit the portal. He's gone. They had other losses as well. They lost their defensive tackle, Kamari Stevens. He had 5.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. He left for Arkansas State. They lost Devin Baldwin for Memphis, starting nose tackle Jeff Marks, and defensive tackle Jackson Luttrell. Anchors of that vaunted run defense both ran out of eligibility. So pretty much all the starters nearly gone. All is not lost, though. They do still have a star piece at edge. J-Rock Swain. He was arguably the team's best defender last year. He comes back. You've got Curly Young Jr. He had 4 sacks off the edge in a rotational role. He'll look to take a bigger slice of the action this year. But then you're kind of down into the minor rotational guys and red shirts again. So it's very much a wait and see deal with them. They do have an intriguing addition out of the portal to watch for, though. The West Liberty defensive lineman Cam Rice arrives. He last season 58 tackles, 23.5 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, and 2 interceptions as a defensive lineman. Now, yeah, it's West Liberty, but potentially guy impact player to come in on the team right away there. Portals taken and given in the linebacker room. They lost the hybrid linebacker safety Larry Worth to Arkansas, but they did get Reginald Hughes from Ole Miss, who's a linebacker edge hybrid. They lost starter Quay Drake to the NFL draft, but the other primary starter, Lalisha Hale, returns. He had a really good 2023. You've got Jabril Alameen. He's in the returning rotation room as well. Then you're into the redshirts and freshmen. So turnover, but not as bad as what you've got on the D-line. The secondary also suffered losses. In the safety room, the starter Jeremiah Harris headed to the NFL. The other starter, Fred Perry, is back. He had a good 2023. They got guys out the portal. They got Josh Knapp from the Virginia Military Institute. He had 1,500 snaps of starting experience there, and that's a good FCS program. It's where Diego Pavia and lots of others have come from. You got James Ziegler, who was a starter for Navarro College in JUCO. He's a former Vanderbilt prospect. And you got Maine transfer Austin Ambush, who dipped his toe in as a part-time starter last year. Very talented potential guy to come in there. And you've got the true freshman, Travis Franklin Jr. He appeared in all the 2023 games, working his way through special teams. So he's going to be a redshirt freshman this year. So, yeah, you've got losses, but you do have future potential, and then you've got a starter as well. Corner room has sustained losses as well. Their starter, Kikori Tarnui, transferred to West Virginia in the Power 4. The nickel corner, Colby Fakua, went to the NFL draft. But even then, they're returning some good starting experience. Derek Carter had nearly 600 snaps, 7 pass breakups. Marco Baker had 330 reps, 3 pass breakups. Jabari Mack had 400 reps. Gamia Latimer had 260. He was the highest graded corner on the team with less snaps. Got a couple of guys with extensive special teams work as well, looking to break into the team. But overall, Rye, we'll talk about defense first. It's been hit hard by the draft, by the portal, but they seem to maybe potentially just have the right amount of experience left at most positions to be able to cope. Which seems like QB, those vital positions, just need to see with it.
Yeah, like such a good defensive line last year. They've been poached, and that was always going to happen. Like I say, they're going to go to some of the lesser Power 4 schools, and we've seen that happen. So yeah, the big strength of the team last year was pass rush. And like I said, they've lost some guys, but then they've brought in guys that have been very productive. But like I say, at smaller schools or lesser known football or against lesser opposition, banking on the fact that they've got the talent to be able to come into this program and hit the ground running straight away. Like Cam Rice, the statistics are pretty ridiculous. And like I say, I don't know the level it is. West Liberty, I'm going to guess it's Division Two.
I think
But
it's
with
Division Two,
yeah,
yeah.
with those kind of like stats, he must have one, great athleticism, two, football a high IQ. So he's someone that they're probably going to thrust into a starting position straight away and say, "We know what you can do at that level. We need you to come and do at this level." And if they're able to get 70% of like last year's sack totals, they're gonna have a chance to make a title game. Like say Brain But and then like say on the back end, great additions, like say looking at Josh Knapp from VMI. Good footballing program. Even though it's a
Mm.
military institute, they're actually good at football. And this kid is massive. He's 6'3", 215 in safety. So he's built like an edge rusher. And like I say, he had 2 sacks last year. He had like 80 tackles, a couple of forced fumbles. He's probably going to be someone that's expected, being I think he's in fourth year now. He's going to be expected to be a leader, probably that steps into that. He's very experienced. They're going to want him to come in straight away and be a bit of a general on that back end, but yeah, he will mix it up in the box and as a free safety because he's a big guy. So yeah, they brought in some good players. And there's a mix, like I say, of experience, fresh portal talent that may be a bit wet behind the ears, but like I say, has done it at other levels. So it's not a bad position to be in as the first year defensive coordinator that's worked with some big programs and big schools. So this shouldn't really phase him in the slightest, to be honest.
No, like I say, Tulsa's always known for good defenders. It might not jump off the page, but it's a program. If you've come from there and you're experienced, usually pretty good at what you do. The schedule, I think, is sets up favorably for them. So again, 6 home games, 6 away games. The non-con slate, they're at home to Coastal Cal. They'll be looking to avenge last year's loss. Away at Louisville and Eastern Michigan, then at home to Southern Miss. Then they get the bye. Then you go into the season. So you're away at Kennesaw State, the new beast. Then you're at home to New Mexico State. Then you get another bye, and you've got a bit of a run till the end of the season. You're at home to Middle Tennessee, away at Liberty and Louisiana Tech, at home to Florida International and Sam Houston, and then you finish away at Western Kentucky. So, like, I think that's a decent schedule. You look at home, New Mexico State in turmoil this year, Middle Tennessee, Florida International, Sam Houston. You're on the road to Kennesaw State, the newbies, Louisiana Tech, who are rubbish. It's Liberty and Western Kentucky on the road where it's going to make or break them, but they've got the potential for a good platform. They're just going to hope that bye isn't too early and sort of hinders them right near the end.
Yeah, like I say, that last 6 games is really going to test this team that now probably lacks depth. Like I say, maybe on the D line, they've got starters, but they're going to need everybody in those last 6 games. But yeah, a Southern Miss team that's lost Frank Gore Jr. Like I say, Kennesaw State and New Mexico State in between the byes, you'd expect to win both of them.
Yeah,
So yeah, and then Liberty, FIU, Western Kentucky, them last 6 games are hard. But yeah, they've got a bone to pick with Coastal Cal. And then Louisville, they got hit hard this year as well, the Cardinals. Like I say, but they're on success. So interesting tie that week too, one on the road. Let's see what they can do and will they lose? Maybe, but let's see how much of a fight they can put up. So that'll be an interesting game to watch.
exactly. But hopefully it could have been a lot worse. So there's a lot of optimism potentially there. The player to watch, I've mentioned him twice already, the left guard, Play Webb, 6'3", 290 pounds, has no equal in the CUSA. Like, guy was humble enough to drop all the way down from Georgia to search for his opportunity. He's taken it with both hands. He's a road mauler in the run game. He's a stout anchor in pass pro. If he has another all-dominating season in 2024, it is not a stretch to say, and I said this, he is a potential day one pick in a draft. And before people laugh, the CUSA has produced first round picks Dontari Poe, Marcus Davenport. They've been selected in the first round before. They get a big high profile game against Louisville, expected to do well this year. See how he does in that. Honestly, this guy is something different. But let's move it on. And we've gone to our next team, the Kennesaw State Owls. So we've got the newbies, Ryan. We get to take a little look at them. They play at the Fifth Third Stadium in Kennesaw, Georgia. Rivalry, they've got a big rivalry with Mercer. It's more concentrated on basketball as the football team has not been around long enough to develop an established rivalry yet. It's only been going since 2015, the program has. In 2022, their record, they were 5-6. They were 1-4 in the Atlantic Sun. 2023, they were 3-6. They were playing as an FCS independent due to impending transfer. So 8 wins over the last 2 years. The coach, Brian Bohannon, he is 53. This is his 10th season. He's the only head coach the Owls have ever known. He's been in the position since the program's inception. He is an offensively minded coach. Starting in 1996, he's coached wide receivers at Gardner-Webb, Georgia Southern, Navy, and then he did quarterbacks at Georgia Tech. He was a long-time assistant to Paul Johnson. So those of you who know college football way back, he was one of the pioneers of the flex bone spread option offense, who won 189 games at the college level with Georgia Southern, Navy, and Georgia Tech. So for those who don't know, the base flex bone consists of a quarterback, 5 offensive line, 3 running backs, 2 who play as slot backs, 1 who plays a fullback, and 2 wide receivers. Bohannon held true to his roots. He ran the same offense with the Owls. But with all these new cut block rules and the transition up to the FBS, and we'll talk about that when we talk about Army, triple option football has evolved. The Owls have now moved to a pistol option offense. So that explains kind of why they've struggled these last few years. They've had to move away from traditional, more option stuff into the pistol, but he's had success with this program. He had a 48-15 record over his first 5 years. It's the winningest first 5 years of a new program in college football history. He's 71-30 overall. He's got 3 Big South titles. He's 5-4 in the FCS playoffs, although they never got past the quarterfinals. Like I say, they're 8-12 over the last 2 seasons, but it coincides with them having to modernize their offense. Guys who are going from triple option, they sometimes struggle. But this is a program used to winning. Jacksonville State showed last year you can hit the ground running, but will the pistol option take to the FBS like Rodriguez's run first spread offense at Jacksonville State? That is the question. But the new boys, right? 1 head coach. They've been good in the FCS, but this is going to be a new challenge for them.
Yeah. And I feel like I know he's very like that long-term head coach, but he's got to be kind of on a short leash. Like you say, he can't be set in his ways too long now, making a jump. If things don't look good after a year or 2, I'd probably cut the apron strings, and it'll be hard for them, but they do have to move with the times. Like you say, that will change the offense, because like I say, their old offense would not have worked at the FBS. Honestly, it would have probably been painful to watch. Like I say, running with a proper pistol offense, it's going to be interesting to see how they do with tempo, how they do with more of a spread look. Are they going to be able to pass the ball a little bit better and consistently this level? So yeah, a good FCS team, but that's kind of all in the past now. We're going to have to see how quickly they make a transition, and if he is the man to take them into this next era of Kennesaw State Owls football. That remains to be seen so far. So it's going to be an interesting year, especially after last year, because it was bad.
Yeah, that's it. It's the unknown. They are the unknown this year. In terms of their draft stuff, no players were drafted in 2024. However, the last player to be drafted, the only player they've ever had drafted was in 2023. It was the defensive lineman Travis Bell. He was taken by Chicago in round 7. So, like I say, very new program in the grand scheme of things. In terms of their 2023, their results, they started off with a win against Tusculum, 38-7, but then they lost on the road to Chattanooga, at home to the Furman Paladins, away to Tennessee Tech, away to Charleston Southern, at home to Tennessee State. Then they won at home against Lincoln, CA, which one's that now? California. And then they lost to Sam Houston on the road, 24-21. So nearly got an FBS scalp, and then they won their final game against Virginia Lynchburg, 63-3. In terms of their rankings, so these are rankings in the FCS because they played there last year. It's out of 122. The total offense was 82nd. Total defense was 15th. They only gave up 309 yards of offense per game. Scoring offense was 56th. They scored 26 points per game. Scoring defense was 9th. They only gave up 17.9 points per game. The rushing offense was 14th. 196 yards per game, scored 21 touchdowns. The rushing defense was 23rd. They only gave up 118 yards per game and just 9 touchdowns on the year. Passing offense was 113th. Passing defense was 31st, only 190 yards per game given up. Sacks, they were 54th, they had 18. Tackles for loss, they were 45th with 53. In terms of what they gave up, sacks allowed, they were 43rd with 15. Tackles for loss allowed, they were 52nd with 49. Turnover margin was 5th, though, in the nation. They gained 15. They only lost the ball 5 times. So you can see what they're all about, right? It says it there, physical running football, not much of a passing game, but a really damn good defense last year, which probably didn't get the help it needed. When you run the ball a lot, you can't score very much, and it just takes 20, 30 points and you're out of games. But defense was a monster unit last year.
It's a bit weird because, like I say, they lost to all the Division 1 schools and only beat Div 2 schools. So I don't know, the stats, they feel very misleading. Like they played bully ball against minnows. Essentially by their own standards, yeah. They beat non-FCS teams and lost to all the FCS teams. So I take the stats with a pinch of salt, but I see what they want to do. You're right. They're a defense-first football. Like I say, they want to basically give themselves the chance to have the shortest field position possible by getting the other team off the field. Like I say, because they're not a passing offense. They do struggle to move the ball down the field in a passing offense, but they can run the ball. They can take the ball away. They don't give it away. So they're very much, they don't take a lot of risks. They like to be very careful, methodical in that sense. And yeah, like I said, they will like to be in a lot of very close, small, short scoreline games. They want to be on the right side of them. So yeah, it's going to be interesting because these kind of things, they're probably not going to work in the CUSA next year. There's some big offenses. They're going to have to make some changes. Passing the offense, they're going to have to be a little bit better. But if they can bring that defense, that's a pretty good place to start from to work on the offense. So yeah, I see what they want to do. Like I say, it's going to be interesting to see if they're able to implement that while also running a pistol. Because like I said, they're not going to have that multiple running back scheme now, like all the scat backs. So yeah, it's going to be seeing this time next year how they've kind of changed. Be interesting to compare. I expect a big change.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do things pan out for 2024? So the preview for the Kennesaw State Owls at quarterback. So last year's starter Jonathan Murphy is gone. He ran out of eligibility. So we've got another open battle to my knowledge. So you've got Davis Bryson, sorry, who was last year's backup. He saw some action. He's 5'9", 190-pound dual threat. He had 200 rush yards last year. He didn't pass it very often, but he kind of was the guy they brought in when they wanted to run the ball a little bit. But he may fit the style of offense best of all. He's redshirted his freshman and sophomore years, so plenty of eligibility left. The other option as of now is Braden Bohannon. He is the son of the head coach, Brian. He's 6'1", 180 pounds, and has also redshirted his first 2 years. He's a convert from wide receiver. He's more of a stand and deliver pocket passer. The only other guy on the roster is Lucas Shearhorn. He's the high school commit arriving on the roster, but you're not likely to see him this year. So brand new quarterback. Guys who've redshirted 2 years, not seen snaps so far. You're throwing a rookie in here, so that's not ideal coming up to the first year in the FBS, right?
No, their past offense would have led towards the smaller dual threat guy. But going forward, I feel like they probably need to work with Morris Stan and the liver guy. They're not related to Jerry Bohannon, are they? The former Baylor quarterback. I wonder if he's in
Uh,
their family tree.
I don't think
He's a point.
so. Maybe. I didn't come
But
across that when
yeah,
I checked, but possibly.
I'm not sure. I feel like so if they put Braden in, I reckon this team absolutely bombs because, like I say, they're not used to having a quarterback that's going to stand under center and step up and deliver. They're not built like that. But it's probably going to give them the best opportunity to get better on offense for the years to come. Like I say, Bryson will be very restricted at that size and that weight about standing in the pocket and not getting absolutely crumpled. So, yeah, I'll be honest, on paper, it certainly doesn't fill me with any confidence, the QB room whatsoever. And yeah, I always thought the jump up, frankly, was a mistake and too soon, not having practice with a quarterback or a new offensive system. I think but yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting because, like I said, couldn't have two different guys.
No, absolutely. It's very much open. I think I saw one of the publications Brent mentioned today, which has Davis Bryson in, but it remains to be seen. So the offense, so we've got co-offensive coordinators for the first time, Chandler Burks and Stuart Cook. It is their first year. So their former offensive coordinator, Chris Klanakis, was snagged by Vanderbilt to be their offensive line coach. So the Owls have promoted internally for his replacement. Chandler Burks has spent the last 4 years on program as quarterbacks coach. Stuart Cook has been at Kennesaw State since its inception, like Bohannon. He coaches the tackles and the tight ends. So schematically, expect nothing to change at all. They're already fully blooded into the system here. And as we know with the option, it lives and dies with its running backs and the offensive line. In the running back room, they've got the 5'7", 200-pound mini mauler Michael Benefield leading the way. He's coming off a team-leading 566-yard season, running at 6.3 yards per carry. The quarterback Murphy from last year was the next leading rusher. He's gone, but all the depth pieces are back. You've got Alexander Diggs and Uzziah Clemens. And in Davis Bryson, if he starts, you've probably got a dual-threat quarterback to contribute, along with a bunch of red shirts they've got looking to compete for carries. The offensive line was very higgledy-piggledy last year, to say the least. No player played more than 260 snaps at one position. A lot of the guys moved around the line, but they bring a lot of them back. They've got a lot of reps of experience. You've got the swing tackle Darren Willis. He had 200 snaps at both tackle positions. He started 8 of 9 games last year. JT Pennington and Ethan Newman logged triple-digit snaps at both guard positions. You've got Seaburn Hines and Nate Wright, who both logged triple-digit snaps at right tackle. They did lose both guys who played starting center, and they did lose Terrell Paxton, who was another swing guard who logged the most snaps of any guard last year. Whether it's a schematic thing to move so many guys around the line, I don't know, but they could do with finding more consistency to help with the pass protection. And they've gone at improving this line hard. You've got the Montana State right tackle, Jacob Kettles. He's transferred. He had 650 snaps in the last 2 years with the Bobcats. You've got the Kennesaw State high school recruiting class for 2024. It's the highest graded in the team's history, although the history is 9 years long. Features no less than 9 offensive linemen. They make up about half the high school recruiting class, and it's very noticeable that there's a few big, beefy 300-pounders in the group as they look to get bigger up front. The tight end fullback room is healthy. You've got the 6'4", 240-pound Carson Kent. He returns as the lead tight end for the Owls. He was 3rd in receiving yards last year's. Shows to be underrated as a pass-catching option, and he grades out at 70 plus in both blocking disciplines. You've got Preston Daniels, who's the 260-pound tight end fullback hybrid who does all the run game dirty work and is another sneaky good receiving option as well. And you've got depth pieces in the tight end room. You've got Rowan Darnell and Connor Finer, who both saw good snaps last year. The wide receiver room looks very promising. You've got Gabriel Benyard. He only played 4 games last year, but he had 333 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. He rushed for 118 yards and a touchdown at over 6 yards per carry, had 3 kick returns for 132 yards and 3 punt returns for 41 yards. He literally plays all over the field. He got injured, but he's back and he's healthy now. They did lose Isaac Foster, who was the second leading receiver. He ran out of eligibility. But then they've got Blake Bohannon, another son of the head coach. He's back. He's looking to build his rep in his junior year. They've also gone to the portal. They got the 6'3", 200-pounder Christian Moss from Virginia Tech and the outside wide receiver Deston Thomas from Memphis. So, again, they've got some good players in there. Your offensive line is the big problem. Like, it was crazy how many guys have played like 100 snaps at each position. They're all over the show. It kind of explains maybe a few issues with the pass pro and why they didn't get that going. But if you can settle that, you've got a stud running back, you've got a stud do-it-all wide receiver, got a good tight end room. again, the potential's there, Ryan.
Yeah, it feels like they've got a lot of right now a lot of square pegs in round holes, but they've got a lot of pegs. They just don't know where they fit best. Weapons wise, if that Benyard can come back and somehow stay fit for a whole game, I mean, he's going to be a dynamic weapon across the board. It sounds like he could be one of those outliers for like CUSA Team of the Year as a receiver, as a rusher, or as a returner. So he could be an exciting team to player to watch in the whole conference potentially. It sounds like in a small, short period of time, he did a lot of work last year, and losing him was probably pretty detrimental to why things went so poorly, especially against some of the better schools. But yeah, like I say, Bohannon's, you got the tight ends as well, and they've got a big mix of body types. Some are blockers, some are receivers. They brought in Paul help, like I say, receiver, some big guys. So yeah, they've got the weapons in a run game and a rush. They might have a quarterback. It's just going to be like offensive line. Can they stick them down to one position? Or can you then, like I say, this time next year, are they going to be plugging in all their new high school kids, like I say? So I think they're going to be building towards the future. Get some starters now on the offensive line, and then look to incorporate guys next year. But yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces right now, and I don't know how it's going to look, but it's going to be pretty chaotic, but it should be at least fun to watch at times. Like I said, there I've got some guys that will have some standout performances even in losses.
That's it. I think if you can settle that O-line, there's a lot of returning starting snaps. They're just all over the place. If you can settle the guys, get them right, get a quarterback who's only half decent, even if he's only half decent, you've got bona fide playmakers. So again, reasons to be optimistic for Kennesaw State if they can get those two areas sorted. In terms of defense, defensive coordinator is Greg Harris. This is his first year. So the Owls lost both coordinators this offseason. Nathan Burton, who oversaw last year's really impressive unit, he got snapped up by Troy to be their co-defensive coordinator. And as you know, the Trojans have been the cream of Group of Five football on defense these last few years. So that's a testament to just how good a job he was doing. And again, they've promoted from within to replace the outgoings. So Greg Harris, as I say, he's the new guy. He spent the last 4 years with, hang on, Greg Harris. Yeah, he's been the linebacker coach for the last 4 years. I don't know why I got mixed up there, but yeah, he's been the team 4 years, coach linebackers. He's also got defensive coordinator experience with North Greenville in Division 2. So again, guy who's fully immersed in the system, knows what it's about, shouldn't see much of a difference there. They said defense was great last year. It could do with more end production in the pass rush, and the team has gone out looking for it. They've got the former four-star edge recruit Donovan Westmoreland from South Carolina. We love that because it's such a British name. He's failed to break into the team there, but this is a big recruit for a team Jack State's size. Hybrid defensive tackle, defensive end Tylen Dunlap has come in from Georgia State. He's got 500 snaps of starting experience there. And you've got a group of steady contributors on the line. You've got the defensive tackles Jordan Miles, Adam Watkins, Ugonna Nwoha, going to form the back line for that good run defense that they've got. So, it's quite fairly intact for them. They did lose Carlos Allen Jr. to Houston, but overall, the room's mostly intact. Fresh reinforcements for them there. The linebackers, they were not the greatest unit last year, but they return a lot of experience. Their top tackler, Danelius Johnson, is back. Got Jalen Barnum, Baron Hobson, Garland Benyard, who is brother to the Benyard on offense. Also significant snaps last season. So if anything, it's going to be a room full of vets who hopefully, again, will show natural improvement from their starting experience last year. The secondary, however, that got hawked by Georgia Southern. So they lost the starting safety, DeAndre Morris, and starting corner, Chance Gamble, who both made the switch to the Eagles. And their other starting safety, Markeith Montgomery, ran out of eligibility and he is done. So a few losses. As far as the safety room goes, they got Sidney Porter and Isaac Paul, who got rotational reps last year. But further starting reps are hard to find, so it's a room that needs to be rebuilt. At corner, you've got Jericho Washington Jr. He returns after leading the team with 3 interceptions last year. You've got Tyler Hallam, Javen Williams, Nick Sawyer, who all saw good levels of snaps last season. So you got a bit more depth. And they've got a whole lot of redshirt freshmen in the secondary coming into year 2 who are likely going to see proper snaps for the first time. So you're going to see a few new names in there as well. I mean, if this team can get a stable O-line and up its pass rush production, it could be a difficult team to face in year 1, right? But again, a lot of this is so much we've got to wait and see with them.
Yeah, like I say, the O-line, like I say, find a combination that works, and when it does work, stick with it. Don't move them. Even if they want to move, just make them work. It'll gel eventually. An inexperienced secondary, like I say, it's never ideal. Like I say, a lot of new faces or guys that have not got tons of experience under the belt. They'll learn, but unfortunately, they'll always learn the hard way in the secondary. They will make mistakes. They'll give up big plays, but that's kind of just it happens. That's how you get grained in, unfortunately. But in the middle, yeah, defensive line, they brought back some linebacker play. Like say defense, losing the coordinator, never good. So, but I expect a new coordinator stepping in probably doesn't want to change too much. Why would you change something that's not broken and was one of the better FCS defenses? So, yeah, keep the core of what they're doing. Add in players, like say, no team's gone into the portal. It's going to be painful this year. I think it will be. It's a difficult schedule. It's hard with what they're trying to do. But yeah, grit their teeth, get through it, and like you say, prepare for this time next year. Like you say, and just yeah, try to cause a few upsets, catch a few strays. That's what they'll be looking to do. But yeah, go in, just get a plan, get a system that works for them.
Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of integration into you're gonna see a lot of new players in this team this year who we don't know about yet. So, but that's the whole fun of it. You got to build a program for the long term. You mentioned the schedule, 6 home, 6 away. The non-con slate, they're away at UTSA, at home to Louisiana Raging Cajuns, and away to the San Jose State Spartans. Then they have a bye. Then they're at home to UT Martin, and then the conference schedule starts. They start at home to Jacksonville State. Then they have their other bye, and then they've got a 7 game stretch to end the season. They're away at Middle Tennessee, at home to Liberty, away to Western Kentucky and UTEP, at home to Sam Houston and Florida International, and then away at Louisiana Tech. I mean, you're right. That's tough. I mean, those first 3 non-con games against teams who all like to kick you around a bit. And you're placing Jacksonville State and their run game. You're at Liberty at home. You're away at Western Kentucky. It could be a Sam Houston-like season. They lose a lot to start with, maybe picking up a bit towards the end, but that's the schedule gods have not done them no favors this year.
No, trial by fire. I expect them to go 0-3. I think they probably expect to go 0-3 as well, if I'm honest. That's 3 pretty big boys straight out the block. By UT Martin, a team they'll know well. They'll think they can go out there and get the job done. Jacksonville State, and then yeah, it's a very lopsided schedule after the bye. Like I say, 7 straight games. Sam Houston, like I said, they're a relative newcomer as well. They'll like their chances against them because they will have played them a lot of times in the past, and they'll think they'll know how to beat them. Fairly close, but yeah, LA Tech, FIU, Liberty, West Kentucky. Those last 7 games, if they've not got the offensive line gelled by then, they don't know where they're going. Could go winless. Frankly, it's realistic. Yeah, they could do, but yeah, they could finally start clicking in the last few games. So, like I say, by then, you'd like to think whoever they've settled by quarterback has probably settled down a little bit and is probably now starting to understand what's been asked of him, the playbook and the playmakers that they've got. There are some there that probably now all on the same page here. I expect a really rough start until the second bye, and then I'll probably judge them more on the last 7 games, the first 6 games. 5 games don't really mean a lot.
No. Like that Jacksonville State opener in the CUSA is big. Run heavy team. They've got a good run defense. How are you matching against the team who's only just made the transition? That'll be the one for them. In terms of the player to watch, I've highlighted him, the running back, Michael Benefield. Like I say, he's only 5'7", but he's 200 pounds. This guy's a little dump truck. He's found success. He was with the Butler Bulldogs before he moved to Kennesaw State. But he's broke out big in year 2 with them. He is a tough, durable runner. He's going to be a centerpiece for the option-orientated offense. He's got a chance to make a big first impression in what will be his first and last season in the FBS, because it's his last season in college football. So he'll want to go out with a bang. So Michael Benefield, you'll want to watch out for him there. Note about Kennesaw State, they are ineligible for the postseason due to the FCS transition. If they make it there, then they deserve to be in it. I would petition for them to get in. That would be such a big thing. But yeah, they can't get to the championship game this year. Moving on, and we are on to team 4 now, and we have the champions, the team who no one could really lay a finger on last year, the Liberty Flames. Established 1973, they play their games at the Williams Stadium in Lynchburg, Virginia. The rivalry, it's a big one with Coastal Carolina. This spawns back from both teams' time back in the Big South when they were both FCS teams. They fought over the conference title for years, had a storied series of games. A deep-seated rivalry was born out of that, and it was reignited recently when Liberty followed Coastal Carolina up to the FBS. Even though they're not conference mates, they play one another quite often. And relations did not improve when Liberty poached Coastal's prize head coach, Jamie Chadwell, after the 2022 season. Their 2022 record, they were 8-5 as an independent. The 2023 record, first season in the CUSA, they went 13-1 overall. They were 8-0 in the CUSA. Coach, mentioned him, Jamie Chadwell. He's 47. It's his second season. Very much an offensively minded coach. When in need of a new head coach, why don't you go and poach the one who's having a load of success with your rivals? Chadwell took the Chanticleers from FBS newbies to one of the best teams in the group of 5. He went 39-22 in his time at Coastal. He made Grayson McCall his general. They had one of the most fearsome offenses in all of college football at one point, and frequently he had them ranked in the AP top 25. But most importantly with Chadwell, he's a winner. He's won the Big South twice with Charleston Southern. He won a share of the Sun Belt Championship in 2020 with Coastal Cal. He's now got a CUSA championship with his new Liberty Flames, and it wasn't even close. Year 1, Liberty destroyed everything put in its path via sheer, brute, domineering force, outside of getting twonked in a bowl game by Oregon, which we'll talk about later. But this team was returning just 8 of 22 starters from 2022. We said last year, how are they going to replace so much talent? The only question right now, though, is can anyone step up to them? Because don't expect any amount of turnover to affect this team's ability to run through everyone again. We wondered last year, like, you're returning 8 starters on a team. It's your first year as a head coach. How well are you going to do? What do we know? Like, he made it look easy. Chadwell is a born-again winner.
Yeah, he was a very highly prized or highly touted asset, wasn't he, after that 2022 tier? A lot of teams wanted him. And I wasn't going to be surprised if he got a Power 5 job. And if he does this again this year, I reckon his stop in Liberty will be very brief, because I reckon he could be poached just after this year if he's able to replicate it. But yeah, you look at guys like, say, when he had, like, say, Grayson McCall, they were an offensive score. They wanted to just round the ball down your throat and pass it well. And like I say, he had a very proficient quarterback last year, one of the best in the country. And they were able to put up some big numbers, and they just chewed teams up. And they were a wrecking crew from start to finish. Like I say, they are the team to beat. They are the, like I say, the Hydra. You need to take their heads off if you're going to beat that. Because like I say, they're going into this season, not a lot has changed. Like I say, he's still, for me, probably one of the more intriguing prospects to be, like, say, maybe an OC at an SEC school one day, or a Power 4, on a lesser Power 4 head coaches. I think they'll be looking at him if he's able to replicate. But yeah, basically a perfect year. It couldn't have gone any better. And the Fiesta Bowl, they probably didn't even bat an eyelid as soon as the full time whistle was blown. But it did take the shine off the season whatsoever.
No. You win the championship, that's all that matters. Screw the bowl game afterwards. Win the title. But yeah, Chadwell, amazing first season with Liberty. In terms of the draft stuff, they didn't actually have anyone drafted in 2024, but you only have to go back 1 year. The last player drafted from Liberty was the wide receiver Demario Douglas, went to New England. As for the Lions, They've never drafted anyone from Liberty thus far. Right, going into the 2023 results, I mean, okay, Bowling Green, they beat 34-24. New Mexico State, 33-17. At Buffalo, 55-27. At Florida International, 38-6. Versus Sam Houston, 21-16. They were lucky to win that. At Jacksonville State, 31-13. Versus Middle Tennessee, 42-35. At Western Kentucky, 42-29. Versus Louisiana Tech 56-30. Versus Old Dominion 38-10. Versus UMass 49-25. At UTEP 42-28. Versus New Mexico State 49-35 in the CUSA Championship game. And then to round off the season in the Fiesta Bowl, they got twonked 45-6 by Oregon. I mean, like 34, 33, 55, 38, 31, 42, 42, 56, 38, 49, 42, 49. I mean, you know what the star of the show was last year for them, right?
Yep, pretty easy pattern of trend to follow. It was, I'm going to score as much as I can, as fast as I can. And by the time you even realise what's happened to you, it's probably too late. Let's say it was, we will outscore you. We're going to try to put points on the board every time we like say they'll go for it on fourth downs. Like say they'll live and die by the sword on offense, and that's the football I like to see. Nothing's changed. Grayson McCall would do that back with the Chanticleers. Like I say, it'd cost them games, but yeah, they'll live and die by the sword. And yeah, it worked perfect last year. Like I said, they were able to put up some big time numbers, and even in the close games, well, there weren't any. Like I say, even though teams scored points on them, they were pretty much in control of nearly every contest they went in, essentially.
Just Sam Houston. Like weirdly enough, the winless Sam Houston team played them better than anybody else did. They got takeaways. They kept turning the offense away, but outside of that, it was a juggernaut, and you just have to look at the stats here, which are crazy. So total offense, they were fourth in the nation, 499.1 yards per game, basically 500. Defense was fine, 58th, only gave up 372 yards per game. Scoring offense was ninth, 38 points per game. Scoring defense was 49th, so top 50 unit, only gave up 23.8 per game, and Oregon probably banjacks that stat a bit. Here's where the big numbers come, though. The rushing offense, they were first in the entire nation, more so than Air Force, any of those triple option teams, 293.3 yards per game, basically 300 yards on the ground every game, 39 touchdowns on the ground. And the Russian defense was just as good. It was 24th. They gave up just 116 yards per game and 13 touchdowns, literally a third of what they managed on offense. The passing offense was 88th, 206 yards per game, 32 touchdowns still, though. That was like 71 touchdowns on the year is stupid. The passing defense was 116th, though. They gave up 256 yards per game and 31 touchdowns, but that's because no one could run on them, so teams threw on them. In sacks, they were 94th with 25, and tackles for loss, they were 64th with 79. So D-line, not the best, but get the offensive line stats. Sacks allowed, second in the nation. They allowed just 9. Tackles for loss allowed, first. Only 37 tackles for loss. And when a team runs it all the time, usually you get more tackles for loss. The turnover margin, they were 21st. They gained 25, and they lost 18. I mean, domination, right? You couldn't touch the quarterback. You couldn't touch the running backs. And God help it if you tried to run on them, they just slammed the door in your face.
Yep, that is a recipe to win football games. You can give up as many passing yards as you want, essentially. But if you can run the ball and their defensive line can't get to the running back because they're too shifty at the backfield, or they're able to make guys miss in the backfield, and the QB can stay upright as long as he wants, they're going to pick you off, and you'll win as many games as you like. It's honestly that those are the hardest numbers to replicate because like they're pretty crazy. So yeah, it's going to be really difficult to try and do last year, but they've given themselves such a cushion where they don't have to be that good. They don't have to match them exactly. Like I said, they found a recipe that works. They could be the 20th best team in sacks allowed next year, and not a lot will change. Like I say, tackles for loss, yeah. So nothing needs to change. Defense, secondary, buckle up a little bit. Like I said, that happens. But yeah, they have found things that work, and it's just about replicating them in consistency now, which is always probably the most difficult thing to try and match what they did.
I mean, if they find a legit pass rusher, God help anybody. But yeah, absolute season of domination. Air Force, when you're getting more rushing yards than Air Force, who are the masters at it, then you are doing something right. And the stupid thing is, they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the group of five as well, and they don't even need to use him as a passer. So, segueing from that, the preview for the 2024 season, it starts at quarterback. Now, the CUSA breathed a very big collective sigh of relief when Flames starter Caden Salter hit the transfer portal. Then they had very much a Room 1408 moment when, with great horror, they learned it was just a dream and they'd actually withdrawn and decided to return to Lynchburg for another year. Last year through the air, he was 291 of 354, which is 61%, 2,869 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions, nearly a 6-to-1 ratio for his touchdowns to interceptions. And on the ground, he had 119 carries for 1,117 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns. He had a rotational role in 2022, but he broke out in the biggest way possible last year. He's a true dual threat quarterback. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. He's got elite athletic ability, a big arm, top-notch playmaking skills, and he's still got room for growth. He's got a fumbling problem as a runner. He's had 18 in the last 2 seasons, so ball security is a priority for him to learn. And the run game has been so dominant, it's kind of limited his chances to show his ability as a passer who can win games when the chips are down. That's not his fault, but it would be good to see him win some games when the run game is not all conquering. He's still growing as a passer. This will only be a second season as a starter. I mean, if he refines his skills as the experience grows, his ceiling is going to be so high at the next level. He's already a projected draft pick. Now the question is, how high can he go? Should he declare after another stunningly good season? There's only the only big red flags on him. He got arrested twice while he was at Tennessee, but he seemingly reformed himself at Liberty. And the fact he will have never played against a Power 4 college either. So there's zero tape against high caliber opponents. The off-season circuit is probably going to be critical for him. And, you know, if he gets hurt, Liberty shored up their back room for this season. They got Ryan Berger in from Appalachian State, who was meant to be the starter there last year, but got hurt. But I mean, right, what more can you say about Caden Salter for a first-year passer? Just on the ground, through the air, great in terms of not turning the ball over. He's got it all. He's got limitless potential, potentially.
Yeah. I was surprised when he took his name out of the portal. I think he probably had some okay to not great Power 4 offers, but I'm kind of glad he didn't take them. I think he probably could do with another year to just, like say, refine, polish. Then next year, hit the portal, go to a big school. Like say, he's kept himself out of trouble. And then, like say, if he does it again at a big school, then you're talking draft stock. Like say, I probably wouldn't, if he has another great this year and he gets the right offer from the portal, I'd probably stay in school another year. But yeah, sky's the limit. The best quarterback in the conference, one of the best quarterbacks in the G5 is back. There is no let up on defenses. Everyone will be sick to the back teeth of him this time next year. Perfect offense. And I suppose it shouldn't really one man. He just makes them instantly favourites. Doesn't turn the ball over. Yes, clean up the fumbles, but I reckon that's probably his number one effort this year. They've probably already told him, you know where you need to be better. We're not gonna we'll yell at you. Like you say, you're a second year player, like you say, in this offense now. So there'll be no excuse next year for coughing the ball up as a runner. So better ball protection. One of the best offenses in the country. He can only, like I say, not necessarily get better, but just been more mature. He knows how to run it now. So there should be a little to no regression.
Yeah, like it's just a case of how high can he go probably at this point, providing that bandwagon can keep going this year. Like I say, I'd be like you. If he has another good year, go up because, like I said, at the end of this year, he will not have played against a Power Four school. So that will affect your stock if you've not shown it against the big boys. But you can't deny his unbelievable talent there. But how does the team stack up around him? So you go on to the offense first. They've got co-offensive coordinators, Willie Corn and Newland Isaac, both in their second season, along with Chadwell. This is a theme with him. He's got two long-term trusted generals helping to run his offense. He's known both since his days as a head coach in North Greenville when he was back there in 2009 to 2011. Horn was his quarterback for that team, and then he moved into coach and he's followed him to Charleston Southern, Coastal Cal, and now Liberty. Corn coaches the quarterbacks as well as his role as the co-offensive coordinator, and he has been integral to the rise of first Grayson McCall at Coastal and now Caden Salter at Liberty. Newland Isaac was the running back wide receiver coach at North Greenville for Chadwell. He's had the running back coach role at all Chadwell's other teams. He moved up to co-OC at Coastal Cal. He still coaches the running backs. And I mean, best running back game in the country. He's doing a damn good job. Chadwell knows his guys. And the CUSA is in for a hard time this year. The Flames had 4 rushers with over 500 yards last year. And they started the season with no established stars. 3 of them are coming back, including their star man, Quinton Cooley. He had just 400 yards in 2 years at Wake Forest before transferring in last year. But the 5'7", 210-pound mini bulldozer, he went for 1,404 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns last year. Duquesne transfer Billy Lucas had nearly 600 yards in his first season in the FBS. He's got 2,500 in his collegiate career going into his last year. And of course, you've got Caden Salter, who was a 1,000-yard rusher, and he will continue to see a lot of groundwork as well. The only guy they lost from the room was Aaron Bedgood. That was due to eligibility running out. He had over 500 yards. So, but they've got the depth pieces, James Jointer and Vaughn Blue back. They've got a new shiny 3-star recruit in Caden Williams, who they're really excited about. So this room is just stupidly dangerous in its quality and its depth. That cannot be said for the receiving room, though. The leading wide receiver, CJ Daniels, on the back of a 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown season, has transferred to LSU. Noah Firth and Elijah Smoot, who were the 3rd and 4th respective in receiving yards, both ran out of eligibility, as did the lead receiving running back, Aaron Bedgood, who we mentioned. Trayon Sibley had 467 yards and 4 touchdowns. He returns. But outside the tight end room, there's precious little returning production. But the Flames, they've gone hard in the portal for reinforcements. You've got the 6'4", 220-pound outside wide receiver Elijah Canyon from Purdue. You've got the versatile inside-outside receiver Julian Gray from NC State. He's got Power 4 experience with them. You've got the outside receiver Tyson Mobley from Coastal Cal. He had 500 yards and 5 touchdowns in Chadwell's last season there. And they've also raided Division II. They got Dante Lee Jr. from the Shaw University Bears. And shout out, they were playing against Coach Huggins's Lincoln University PA team this season, or they will be playing against them this year. Coach Huggins, who we have on for the HBCU shows, that's one of his teams that he plays against. He had 400 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. He's a very dangerous returner, going at over 25 yards per return. So the room's in the position the running backs were last year. There's not much returning production, but there's a lot of portal investment, and that paid off. So maybe it can do so again. As for the offensive line, some reloading to do. The starting right guard, Xavier Gadlin, who was a favorite of mine in the draft process, and starting left guard, Jonathan Graham, went to the NFL draft. And the starting left tackle, Chase Mitchell, is in the transfer portal. He's taking Power 4 visits. Not sure if he's found a team yet. But they do return Jordan White and Xavier Gray, the centre and right tackle. The right tackle, 6'8" and 340 pounds. He's massive. They only coughed up 1 sack combined in 2023. They have Jack Tucker, who took over 300 snaps at left tackle last season. He's back, and he's another big one. He's 6'7", 300 pounds. So we've got 2 ginormous tackles. You've got talented redshirts like Austin Anderson and Aaron Fenimore looking to break through into the starting 5. And again, help from the portal. You've got Louisville transfer John Paul Flores. He has starting left tackle experience, albeit with Dartmouth in the FCS. And he's got starting left guard experience in the Power 4 with Virginia. So you've got 1,400 snaps overall. You've got talented freshman center DJ Geth from UNC. He's only spent a year there, so talented player coming down looking for an opportunity. And they've also gone into JUCO. They got Andrew Johnson from San Diego Mesa, and they've got 3 3-star high school recruits coming in as well, which for the CUSA, 3-star recruits are big deal. So again, tons of competition for those spaces, and both their main tight ends are back. Bentley Hanshaw was a red zone threat last year. He had just 220 receiving yards, but he had 6 receiving touchdowns. They've got Austin Henderson back, and they've got Jason Jenkins from Coastal Cal. He had to sit out of last year because of a transfer waiver issue, but he had 5 touchdowns in Chadwell's last season there. So they've got another red zone option at tight end to utilize. I mean, they've lost guys, right? But 8 of 22 starters returned last year. They're returning a lot more this year. The running back room is insanely good. Wide receivers, ton of guys fighting for spots. Offensive line, tons of guys fighting for spots. It doesn't feel like much is going to change with them, bar the names on some of these spots.
Yeah, like you say, they've gone out and got some like-for-like replacements. Like I say, lost some big players in offensive line, but went out there and got guys with experience that can come in and start straight away at a designated role. They've gone out and they haven't just brought people in for the sake of it. They haven't just gone out there and just thought, oh, we can get him in, we can squeeze him in. They've gone out there and looked for guys that they think can fit a designated role, do a design job for them. And you'd like to think that that offense shouldn't really skip a beat. Obviously, it'll start a bit slow, but yeah, it'll get up to pace very quickly. Like you say, they've got positions. They've got, like you say, Salter, Cooley, who, like you say, was a breath of fresh air after leaving the Demon Deacons, come here and just hit the ground running instantly. But yeah, I don't think they should see much issues. Like you say, they should get clicked very quickly.
Yeah, like I say, you've got head coach and coordinators who've known one another forever. They're all in lockstep. They know what they want to do. And like when you're returning 2,000-yard rushers and depth and new guys and transfers, you're like, Jesus, it's going to be good luck trying to stop that. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, the defensive coordinator is Skylar McGee. It's his 2nd season, and yes, you guessed it, he was part of the North Greenville crew. I mean, are there any fans here watching this who were fans or are fans of North Greenville back in 2009? You had one hell of a future crew on show there. But he was co-DC for Chadwell back in the noughties. He's followed him everywhere, and he's building up his defense. He likes to call his defense the Red Smoke. Not sure why, but he does. Defensive line is promising. The edge, CJ Bazile, is back. He led the team in pressures with 38 pressures. It included 20 sacks and quarterback hits. And he's partnered by TJ Bush, the 6'2", 255-pound freshman. He was thrust into the team due to injuries. He ended up racking up over 630 snaps for the team. He delivered an elite run grade, again, elite defensive grade against the run, 26 pressures, 5 battered passes. He's only going to get better with experience. They say freshman came in, took it all by storm last year. You've got Greg Carroll, who is returning depth for the edge room. You got Brenton Williams out of the portal from Auburn. He was initially committed to Chadwell's Coastal Carolina class of 2023, but he decommitted when Chadwell left for Liberty. He went to Auburn, but he's rejoining him. Big star recruit there who's not even begin to see the field. But now he gets the chance to work with him, and alongside Bush, you've got 2 highly talented sophomores to work with at edge as well as a lead guy. That was the one area where they needed to improve, getting sacks, getting tackles for loss. They've got the arsenal to go do that now. The interior lost Kendi Charles to Duke in the transfer portal, but you've got Jay Hardy, Chris Botti, Bryce Dixon, all saw significant time in the interior last year. Lots of returning snaps. They won the battle for Rod Daniels. He's a defensive lineman from Northwest Mississippi down in JUCO. He was courted by a whole host of Group of Five and Elite FCS teams. So that's even further depth to the defensive interior class. And then you've got Wake Forest transfer Eli Hall as well. He redshirted his first 2 years looking for starting snaps. If he's as good as Cooley was when he came from Wake Forest, then God help anybody facing that line. The linebacker room, though, that's a lot more uncertain. They lost their star man Tyron Dupree. He ran out of eligibility. And the room suffered a lot through injury and lack of depth last season. They've only got Jerome Jolly and Joseph Carter. Both had 400 snaps last year, but that's it for starter reps. They've got no one else outside of that. So they've had to go to the portal. They've got Taylor Jackson. He was a starting linebacker for the East Carolina Pirates last season. He will be a front runner to get a starting job right away. They brought in Ethan Crisp from Vanderbilt after redshirting as a freshman. So again, relatively new guy in college. Not been sat there for years. You got Aiden Vaughn from Wisconsin after he redshirted 2 years. You've got Jamar Brown, who's a linebacker cornerback hybrid from Coastal Cal. He's worked with Chadwell before. And then you've got kind of all the guys who redshirted. So they've got a ton of guys focusing on those linebacker spots. The Liberty secondary, it led the nation in interceptions last year with 21, but the corner room has been gutted. They've lost both star cornerbacks. Preston Hodge went to Colorado. Kobe Singleton went to Oregon State. They had 6 interceptions and 20 pass breakups between them. They do return a starter in Amarian Williams, who had a good 2023. They've got Dexter Ricks and Marquise Bell, not the one with the Cowboys. Another guy, Marquise Bell, returned for some homegrown depth, and they'll challenge for starting spots. And once again, they've gone hard in the portal. You've got Alex Oliver, a vastly experienced corner from, again, the Virginia Military Institute. They are a legit college. He's got 2,650 reps as a starter for them over 4 years. You got Dominic Hill. He's a 2-year starting corner from Temple. Another starter they've got in. Charles Yates Jr. has seen a few snaps for the Arizona Wildcats in the Power 4. So they've got a lot of options to find their new starting corners. And they're going to be backed by a really good safety room. Brylan Green is the star. He had 5 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, and an elite run defense grade last year. The other starter, Quinton Reese, had 2 picks of his own. He's back for the year as well. It'll be his 3rd as a starter. They only lost 1 starter, Brandon Bishop, to the draft, but they've gotten former Miss State recruit Eldrick Griffin out of the portal from JUCO. He was caught in Power 4 offers. And they've got a Corey Jones who spent 2 years in the safety rotation looking to break in there as well. So, I mean, yeah, they've lost Ryan on defense, but by God, they've just bought in. They're getting starters from other Group of 5 programs, talented FCS guys. On paper, it looks like they've lost a lot, but in reality, it's just reloading.
Yeah, the good guys have gone, but then they've gone out there and they've not brought in guys that don't. They have brought in guys that have been at schools, like say high power schools, but haven't played. They've just come here to get valuable snaps. They've brought in guys that have been at maybe smaller schools or less high profiled, but they've got a lot of snaps under their belt. They've played a lot of meaningful football, and they're now just literally going to try to come here and slot in. Because like I said, that this is a defense that's susceptible to the pass, so losing 2 starting corners, not ideal. Like I said, but going out there and getting guys that have got meaningful experience under their belts will help them in the adjustment, just learning a new system. But hopefully, we'll slot in straight away as day 1 starters, and maybe even knuckle, like I say, tighten it up a little bit with potentially not as many turnovers, but they do buckle down a little bit. So yeah, they've gone out there and they've done their best job at bringing in guys that can just fill roles, stem the bleed, like say, of what they were doing last year, but they shouldn't really miss a trick on the back end.
No, very strong on the D line, set the tone. All the units behind will follow. So turnover, but good replacements there for them. How does their schedule look? So again, 6 home, 6 away. The non-conference, like they start at home to Campbell. Then they're away at New Mexico State. The CUSA slate starts early for them. So last year's CUSA title game will be in week 2. Then they're at home to UTEP, and then they're at home to East Carolina, and they're away at Appalachian State. Then they got a bye. They play Florida International. Then they got another bye, and they finish with 6 games. They're away at Kennesaw State, at home to Jacksonville State, away at Middle Tennessee, away at UMass, at home to Western Kentucky, and away to Sam Houston. And again, like, you look at the hardest ones on there, they've got Western Kentucky at home, but, New Mexico State on the road, they're not going to be what they were last year. It's potentially worked out great for them in terms of their rivals and who they'll be playing.
Yeah, I look at it and I think good start, like you say, quite a few games to get going into the bye, so you're not coming out the first bye cold. FIU, like you say, in between the bye, like you say, that I'd like more games in the middle. Like you say, it's pretty front and back heavy loaded, but yeah, honestly, I look at it and think can go unbeaten. I mean, as well, honestly, I look at that and think potential playoff outlier.
Mm.
They've got to be, hadn't they? Like, if they'd have done what they did last year, this year, they'd be well in the contention for making the playoffs. So I look at that and they should be aiming to try win 11, 12 games and be in that contention to be in the first 12 team playoffs. So yeah, it's not out of the realms of possibility of winning out again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look through there, even like I say, they don't play Power 4 teams. So,
No.
it's very difficult when you're not, you look at that. Who is the toughest team that they're going to face on there? Maybe away at App State. I mean, that will be a quarterback battle.
App State, East Carolina are good. Yeah.
I mean, that could potentially be a banger at App State. Caden Salter versus Joey Aguiar after his year last year. That's battle of the best 2 quarterbacks in the group of 5 potentially. So that is certainly a game to watch out for there with the Flames. The player to watch, I mentioned him already, the edge TJ Bush, 6'2", 255 pounds. Liberty's defensive line has produced some studs over the last couple of years. They may have just stumbled on one earlier than anticipated. Like I say, freshman last year made a huge impact on a championship team who need more plays, more sacks, more plays in the backfield. Plenty of weapons in his arsenal to get to the passer, but most impressive for a freshman, it's the IQ. 5 batted passes last year. So if you can't make plays on the quarterback, get in his passing lanes, make plays on the ball. For someone starting for the first time, it shows he's got a lot of IQ in there. How can he make a play on the game? Not just how can I get to the quarterback? He's a sophomore this year. Could be one of the best defenders in the group of 5 by the time this season is up. TJ Bush is the name to watch in Liberty. And we'll finish it off because we are going to do this in 2 halves because this is team 5. We're going to finish off and we've got a team who me and you have got a lot of gripes with from last year, right? The Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, established in 1901. They play at the Joe Aylett Stadium in Ruston, Louisiana. Rivalries, they've got 4 official ones, but 3 of them are dormant. The main one is with the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. It's been inactive since 2015, although there's a game scheduled in 2026. They've not played the ULM Warhawks since 2000. There's no game scheduled between them. They played Northwestern State 3 times since 2014, but no more games planned. The only active one is the rivalry in Dixie against Southern Miss, but that's on minor hiatus as well, since Southern Miss have left the CUSA. In terms of the records, 2022, the record 3-9 overall, 2-6 in the CUSA. 2023, when I predicted they were going to go to the CUSA championship game, 3-9 overall, 2-6 in the CUSA, and that has been their record for the last 3 years now. The coach is Sonny Cumby, 42. It's his 3rd season. He's an offensively minded coach. He's built up a college resume as a coordinator at Texas Tech and TCU. He's been wide receivers coach, outside receivers coach, co-OC, full OC, quarterback coach. Finished off 2021 as the interim head coach at Texas Tech. Cumby comes from the school of Mike Leach, and he is devoted to Mike Leach's air raid scheme. He's known for creating high-octane offenses. He's learned under Leach, Tommy Tuberville, Cliff Kingsbury, all those names, highly offensive, geniuses. He inherited a bad Louisiana Tech team who had finished 3-9, but things haven't gotten better. The first 2 seasons have seen identical records to Skip Holtz's final seasons, and there are worrying trends. The team started 2-3 and 3-3, respectively, before finishing 3-9. So it's won one game after like October in the last 2 years. It's crazy. He publicly revoked the credentials of a fan site writer in front of the whole team for not being supportive enough of the program last year, which was a big embarrassing thing for him. They coughed up 154 points in their final 3 games. 3 games last year. Quite simply put, Ryan, Sonny Cumby, he needs a big year or he ain't going to have a job next year.
I don't think there's anything he can do that won't lead him to be fired. This will be his last year. I don't see a miraculous turnaround because on paper last year, he had one of the best receiving calls in the nation. And for a lot of reasons, didn't pan out. Also had a very experienced quarterback that had high upside. I mean, we knew he would, but yeah, he tanked. Their offense stank, and defensively, like I said, they floundered for most of the year, especially at the end. Yeah, a good roster on paper, but dreadful football. And ultimately, a lot of that comes down to bad coaching.
Yeah. We had high hopes. Like the first year, it's a rough one, but when you bring in Hank Backmeyer and you have the weapons you have, you can't be going 3-9. Like that defense was just terrible. But we'll get to it. In terms of the draft stuff, not surprisingly, no players drafted in 2024. Last player drafted was Milton Williams, the defensive tackle by Philadelphia in 2021. As far as the Lions go, you've got to go back to 1984. We drafted the defensive back James Thaxton at pick number 273 back when drafts went longer. In terms of their record in 2023, so like I say, started 3-3. They won at home to Florida International, but just 22-17. They lost away at SMU 38-14. They beat Northwestern State from the FCS 51-21. Lost at home to North Texas 40-37. Away at Nebraska 28-14. They then beat UTEP 24-10, but then 6 consecutive losses to end the year. They gave up 35 points to Western Kentucky, 31 points to Middle Tennessee on the road, 27 at home to New Mexico State, 56 on the road at Liberty, 42 at home to Sam Houston, and 56 away at Jacksonville State. In terms of their rankings, total offense, they were 66th, 385 yards per game. Total defense, they were 107th with 418 yards per game given up. Scoring offense was 76th, 26 points per game. Scoring defense was 114th. Only 16 teams were worse than them. 33.4 points per game given up. The rushing offense was 99th, 123 yards per game and 20 touchdowns. The rushing defense, 129th. They gave up 233 yards per game on the ground and 32 touchdowns. Passing offense, though, was 39th, 260 yards per game, 16 touchdowns. The passing defense was 19th in the nation with 185.3 yards per game with 18 touchdowns. But that's where stats fool you. When your rushing defense is 129th, no one throws on you. Sacks, they were 125th with just 16. Tackles for loss, they were 75th with just 66. And then sacks allowed, they were 68th. They gave up 25. Tackles for loss allowed, they were 80th. They gave up 72. And turnover margin, just to finish it off, 121st. They only had 9 turnovers and they gave up 18. I mean, just miserable. Absolutely rotten defense and an offense that majorly underdelivered given the personnel they had.
Yeah, it's funny because actually they scored a lot of yardage on offense, but no touchdowns. They just didn't score. They could move up and down in between 20s, but when they got to the red zone, They were terrible. What, they only scored, what, 36 touchdowns? That's not very good to say they had, like, say, a great passing offense and a good scoring offense. But yeah, and also miserable at taking the ball away. How many times, like, say, would an interception be dropped? Or, like, say, a fumble, someone wouldn't recover it. Too many times they let teams off the hook. And in the end, yeah, they conceded more points to Sam Houston State than they did SMU. I think that says a lot, really, about where this team's trending in the right direction. Like I said, defense, they just stank.
Yeah, yeah, just rotten all over the board. And yeah, we had them pegged to go to the championship game. So thanks for that, Louisiana Tech, one of the teams who really showed us up last year. But, you know, a new year, fresh ambitions. It's Cumby's third year. Technically, like Mike at FIU, got to give him credit. This could be his first year. He's got rid of all the old players. What can he do this season? The quarterback, so last year, Hank Backmeyer, that experiment failed miserably. He's already fled the program. He's gone to Wake Forest. I don't know what he expects to do there, whether he expects to see the field. Probably shouldn't. He threw for 2,071 yards with 10 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Backmeyer's backup was Jack Turner. He saw playing time last year. He threw for over 1,000 yards with 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. And he returns this year, as does the third string quarterback, Blake Baker. But maybe it's the portal where they found their starters. So I don't know if you remember, Rye, but Ty Keys, he was in the really crowded quarterback room of Southern Miss in 2022 when they all kept getting injured. He's been plagued with injuries in his freshman year. So he dropped down to JUCO. He went to the East Mississippi Community College Lions for 2023. He had the most prolific season of any quarterback in JUCO. He threw for 3,350 yards and 33 touchdowns. Both of those ranked him first nationally in JUCO, and he's earned a straight shot back up to the FBS on the back of that. He's dual threat ability, which hasn't really been released yet, but you know, it's coming to the air raid as well, so we might not see what he can do on the ground all the time, but this guy's got a big arm. He can lay the touchdowns down. Maybe he's going to be the starter this year. Probably Jack Turner, Ty Keys battling this out, but hopefully they will have a good guy to start the year for them.
Yeah, like I said, Jack Turner saw some minimal playing time. And he did, yeah. Like I say, he showed that he's got a decent, strong arm. Had to work on some accuracy. He usually came into games where it was probably long gone, the game, like you say, or Hank had picked up an injury. So he'd have to go in, like say, in relief. So he was coming in cold, so I don't really blame him. But yeah, Keys has gone that route where he's gone all the way down to kind of jump back up. Big step up from JUCO to what he's going to be playing, but he's coming in with a lot of confidence. Like you say, he'll feel good about where his game is, and he'll feel like the big arm that he's got and all those big records that he just set will probably do pretty well in an air raid offense where they're just going to let him kind of, like you say, yeah, attack vertically down the field because that's what he did last year for EMCC, and they're a big school that, like you say, produced a lot of talent because we've seen that in Last Chance U because they followed them, so they've had a lot of big players come there and they've gone back up to like Div 1 football and it's worked with some of them. So it makes sense as a stepping stone. So yeah, Jack and Ty could have a very interesting QB battle this year.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll give them a solid foundation to build on. So their offense, how does that look? They've got co-offensive coordinators Scott Parr, it's his third season, and Nathan Young, it's his first season. They lost one of them. Jake Brown headed to UTEP to join Scotty Walden there as a standalone offensive coordinator. Scott Parr is the tight ends coach as well as the OC. Nathan Young has coached the offensive line for the last 2 years. So again, two guys who are already integrated into the system. Nobody new has come in, but this offense, it's been hit hard by the portal and graduation. Their lead rusher, Tyre Shelton, he's graduated, had 550 yards last year. Their rotational back, Jarvis Thornton, hit the transfer portal. They do keep the services of their second leading rusher, Keith Willis Jr. He had just shy of 300 rushing yards, but he also had 7 touchdowns as a true freshman. This was his first year in college, so potentially good building block there. And they're boosted by the big return of Marquise Crosby. He was the guy we told you to watch last year. He had 900 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2022, but he ended up missing most of last year with injuries. So between Willis Jr. and Marquise Crosby, they've actually got a good running back room. And they've also managed to prize Denario Davenport out of the portal from Texas State. He had 560 yards and 4 touchdowns and was running at over 5 yards per go last season. So technically a starter. So they've got 3 starting potential running backs in that room there of them. Theirs. Receiver room has been totally gutted though. Smoke Harris, the main guy, he went to the draft. Their star sophomore Cyrus Allen hit the portal. He's gone to the Power Four. He's with Texas A&M, and between them, that was 1,600 yards and 8 touchdowns gone. The next best receiver, Kyle Maxwell, he also went to the Power Four with Washington State. And outside of them 3, they had 4 receiving touchdowns from the wide receiver core, and 2 of them left with Kobe Doru, who went to the draft. So they're returning 2 receiving touchdowns from last year. True Edwards, he had 284 yards. Marleon Jackson, he had 161 yards. They're the biggest returning producers. Behind them is a bunch of red shirts, freshmen, and the coolest man in football, the coldest Crawford. They have gone to the portal for some replacements, but they've got 6th-year receiver Abdul Faiti Ibrahim from Bowling Green. He had 220 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. They've got 5th-year receiver Jimmy Holiday from Western Kentucky, but he had 314 yards and 2 touchdowns. There is clearly no bona fide star to start the season, but the air raid can make a man quickly, and there are plenty of willing challengers. Their lead tight end, Ryan Rivera, graduated. That leaves the 3rd-year guy, Nate Jones, who has not really done well over his first 2 years. And then you've got a couple of freshmen, Eli Finley and John Locke. You've got Colin Franta, who's a redshirt freshman. He's a transfer from JUCO. And then you've got Hunter Tipton as well. So you've just got not much experience in there. You've got JUCO guys, you've got red shirts. So tight end remains to be seen. And the offensive line has lost 3 starters. The left tackle, Dakota White, has gone to Houston in the Power 4. Right tackle, Carson Bruno, followed him to the Big 12. He's gone to TCU. And the center, Abraham Delphin, graduated. They've got both starting guards, Bert Hale and Jaron Gilbert, coming back. And they've actually done quite good work in the portal to replenish. They got the Louisiana Monroe starting center, Zarian McGill, who didn't give up a sack last year. He's got 1,500 snaps in the last 2 years. And they've raided the FCS for replacements. They've got the highly experienced left tackle, Daniel Keys from Stephen F. Austin. And they've got Grambling's 2-year starting right guard, Ashante Cole. And they've got 7 redshirt freshmen coming into this year as well, who form the backbone of their 2023 recruiting class, which was the 5th highest in the group of 5. So there's a big well of homegrown talent for them to dip into going into their second years to try and replace those reps. But overall, right, they've lost a lot of guys and they've got a lot of holes to fill this year.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to play air raid when you've got no raiders. It's a shame because, like I say, what a receiving class they literally wasted last year. Great, just talent, like say, some potential bona fide stars. I reckon some of those guys that have left and gone to Power 4 schools could have big years this year. And yeah, they have not really been able to replace them. I know the air raid can maximize guys that aren't household names usually, but you do need some guys. And let's be honest, like I say, what 4-star recruit to call this Crawford? He didn't barely saw the field last year. Do we feel like he's even going to see the field this year? Is he going to have any impact in college football being such a recruit? Is he all hype and like say no trousers? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if like say he don't even stick on the team that long throughout the year. I feel like I'm not sure how he fits into a football team because like say he really made no impact at all last year. So kind of it's got to come together this year or it's not going to happen for him at all. So yeah, someone's got to step in a big way. Tight end room. Yeah, they've brought in a lot of untested talent from the lower divisions to try help them, but yeah, they could run the ball, but I don't know. It feels like they might have to adjust their offense a little bit this year. How strongly are they going to be able to pass it? I know it's not been their bread and butter in recent years, but they're going to have to really knuckle down and get some of these guys, like say, fabricate them touches any way possible. And then the offensive line lost big players who got big time promotions, but went out there and said, let's get the best we can, the most experience from either nearby schools or schools that can play a similar standard of football to us. So I'd like to think the offensive line will be okay.
I mean, again, he plays air raid, but then you look at where he's gone for his replacements on the line. Like Gramblinger, Swack, we know from our HBCU days, love to run the football. Stephen F. Austin, love to run the football. Like he's getting guys from running schools, not pass protection. So maybe we'll see it. You've got three really good running backs there. So maybe come away from the air raid and save your job, Sonny Gumby. But yeah, a lot of transition on the offense. The defensive coordinator is Jeremiah Johnson. This is his first season. So previous DC Scott Power was unceremoniously dismissed from his job after 2 seasons. His defense has ranked 126th and 107th respectively in his tenure. The run defense ranked 130th and 129th. So by that logic, in 128 years, he'd have the best defense in college football. But yeah, the former Stephen F. Austin defensive coordinator did not work out in Ruston, but the Bulldogs have gone back to the FCS for his replacement with Jeremiah Johnson. He is an 11-year defensive coordinator. 10 of those have come at Northern Iowa. Who did they produce last year? Christian Boyd, one of my favorite DTs in class. And he's had 1 year at Kent State as well. His defenses are known for three things: violence, aggression, and more violence. He likes to dominate, not just on the line of scrimmage, but all over the defense. He brings his guys up to blitz. He will hit you any way possible, but he's taking on a hell of a project. And it starts with the defensive line. The Bulldogs have ranked 124th and 125th in sacks the last 2 years. They've had 32 sacks in the last 2 seasons combined. And like I say, 129th and 130th against the run. That's just not acceptable at all. Their edge, Deshaun Hall Jr., led the team with 4 sacks, has graduated. The starting defensive tackle, Rason Williams, is in the NFL on the Seattle camp squad. They were the only 2 players to have more than 20 quarterback pressures for the team, and they suffered a big blow in the portal. They got the Florida nose tackle Keenan Landry to commit in December, but he's already changed his mind and gone back in, and there has been no further help via the portal as of me checking this for the defensive line. There is some talent on the roster. You've got the edge Jaydan Burnett. He was on pace for a big season in 2023, but a lower leg injury ended his campaign after 3 games, but he's back and healthy. He's got a good run defending edge in Michael Clark, who had just a 2% missed tackle rate last year as a starter, so good for him. You got Ezekiel Durham Campbell, had a decent first year after transferring him from Lenoir Rhine. You got Jesse Evans and Jaden Gray saw triple-figure snaps as well, but like they need someone to break out big in 2024. It's good the experience back, but you need the guys on the edge. The starting 3 technique, Zion Nason, is back, but he had a really rough 2023. David Blaze saw some good snaps after transferring from Westchester, who were a Division 2 team. He'll hope to become a starter this year. But literally the rest of the DT options are guys who've redshirted or are freshmen. But the line could do with a huge infusion of new blood, so that may not be a bad thing. One of the guys waiting to step up, they've got the big 6'3", 312-pound LSU transfer, Kels Bush, who came last year. Year 2, maybe he steps up for the team this season. You've got the linebacker room. It's gutted, but again, that might be a good thing because it wasn't very good. Both starters are gone. Jeslord Boateng graduated. Brevin Randall transferred to UTSA. The rotation guy, Hugh Davis, graduated. The only other player who saw serious linebacker snaps was the Arkansas transfer, Zach Zemos. He actually had a really good year. He graded 77 over 370 snaps. They've gone to the portal to find help. The outside linebacker, Mekhi Mason, has had 2 years with Syracuse. Caden Hawkins has had 2 years at Wyoming. Sifa Leota, 3 years at North Texas. CJ Harris, 5th-year transfer from Kent State. Jamarcus Jones, 1 year with UAB. And the latest commitment from the UTSA linebacker defensive back hybrid, Pig Cage. So they've got DeColdis Crawford and Pig Cage. So they're winning name bracket tournaments. But outside of CJ Harris and 1 year of Sifa Leota, there's no starting experience. So it's an entirely new room there. Secondary was the best unit on defense last year, despite the lack of turnovers. The corners are intact. Leading corner Willie Roberts headed to the NFL draft, but the other two starters are back. You've got Cedric Woods, and then you've got the CUSA Freshman of the Year, Michael Richard. He had 7 pass breakups. He even had a pump block touchdown to his name as well, but a big bright spot on that defense of theirs. They've got rotation guys, Jamal Shelby Jr., DeMarcus Griffin-Taylor, so the room is well stocked. They've got more help from the portal. They've got Blake Thompson from Iowa State. He saw 150 snaps for them last year. A good defensive team. Safety room lost both its starters, Miles Hurd, Cecil Singleton. Both went to the NFL draft. And the only 6th-year player, Roderick Roberson, has got snaps coming back. He's just a rotation piece. They got the UNLV starting free safety, though, Jordan Morgan. Well, he was a starter for them in 2022. He moved to corner last year and didn't play, but they're probably going to move him back to free safety. So experience there. They've got a lot of hybrid linebackers as well. Like, say, Pick Cage plays at linebacker, at safety. So you might see some of those guys move back into the secondary. But this has been one of the worst defenses in the FBS 2 years in a row. It's lost a lot of players. It's starting from afresh. And who knows? We know that's a good thing, Rye, but the imminent returns from it don't look good.
No, it can't get much worse statistically. But it doesn't mean, like I say, it's not probably going to get any better either straight away. So for a first-year DC, it's certainly an uphill battle. Like you say, he can put his own stamp on it because, like I say, he's had such a big turnover. Technically, the only direction it can go in is up. And it can only get better from here. Like I say, the passing defense wasn't bad, but a big turnover defensive backs is worrying. The rushing defense, yeah, was one of the worst in the country. So to have an all-new linebacking core should improve it, if anything. Maybe losing half those guys on the front wasn't a bad thing. Just weren't quite stopping the run. So maybe sometimes to just sweep house, whether you choose to or not, be better. I reckon it will be better this year. Like saying that all this turnover will probably be a good thing because they'll get out of those bad habits.
Yeah, it can happen quick. Like I say, Northern Iowa, it's a good defensive team. So he's had results in the FCS over the years. So maybe second time's lucky for getting the FCS defensive coordinator in. Schedule 6 home, 6 away again. Unfortunate for them, they start at home to Nichols, but then they have a bye really early. Then they're away at NC State. They're at home to Tulsa. First CUSA game is away at Florida International. Then they have another bye, and then they have 8 straight games to end the year. Versus Middle Tennessee, at New Mexico, versus UTEP, at Sam Houston, versus Jacksonville, away at Western Kentucky, away at Arkansas, versus Kennesaw State. Obviously, 8-game stretch to end the season's not ideal, but again, you just don't know this year with them.
Yeah, well, that non-con is horrible. Nicholls State are no mugs. And then you get the Wolfpack, the Golden Wave, and the SEC Arkansas Redbacks. They have been properly had their pants down of the schedule makers this year. 8 games, like you say, 2. I don't like that. I don't think you should be allowed to have buys that close together. Or like, you just setting himself up for a fall here. Those last 8 games, how quickly did they run out of steam? Like I say, it's going to be really difficult for him in that middle patch. And like I say, we're going to have to see what state they're even in by the time we get to Kennesaw State. If I'm Kennesaw State, I'm probably licking my lips at the fact that they get that brutal, and in the last game of the year, you get one of the worst defenses in football.
Yeah.
That could be their conference chance of getting a conference wins here. This could get ugly this year if that offense does not fire and those guys don't step up.
Yeah, you're relying on your home games here. You've got Middle Tennessee, UTEP, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State. You want to be winning 3 of them 4, and then who knows? But fair play for the strong non-con, but when you've got this much transition, it's going to be tough. The player to watch, I mentioned him already, the cornerback Michael Richard, 5'11", 180 pounds, reigning CUSA Freshman of the Year. Hit the ground running in his debut season. He gave up just 16 receptions on 38 targets. That's just 42% completion against him. 7 PBUs. Had 3 quarterback hits. He showed promise as a blitzer. Just an 11% missed tackle rate, which for a freshman corner, pretty impressive. And he made his mark on special teams as well with a punt block touchdown. It was a fantastic debut season. Carries on developing more experience. This sophomore season could be a real eye-opener for Michael Richard. Right, we will leave it at that. We are halfway through our CUSA previews. 5 teams done, 5 teams to go. But just overall on the first 5, right, kind of, you know, Liberty are there. You're struggling to see right away where the big challenges are coming from. There's just a lot of turnover, and there is with these group of 5 teams, but also potentially some good dark horse teams in there as well. It's very, very murky.
Yeah. So you instantly look at Liberty and Jacksonville State as being the front runners. Like I say, turnover, but coming off seasons, they've got momentum. They've also got coaches in place that are not first year coordinators. Like I say, they know what they're doing. So those two, and then you've got teams like say that have got maybe some interesting pickups from the portal, maybe some kind of guys that could play quarterback that have not had a chance before, someone that are coming off some rough years in the conference that really need to turn around to you. But you've got at least half a hand of head coaches that if they do repeat what they did last year, 3 of them could be fired out of the 5 we've spoken about.
Yeah, a lot of squeaky bums this year going forward. But yeah, we will give our overall views when we finish next week. So today we've looked at Florida International, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, Liberty, and Louisiana Tech. We'll finish off the conference preview next week with Middle Tennessee, New Mexico State, Sam Houston, UTEP, and Western Kentucky. But thank you to everyone who's joined us for our first show back this year on the College Pod. If there, as always, we are at your service as we go along. We got a lot of stuff going on in this summer period. If there are players you want us to look at, position groups to look at, all that good stuff, we will do that for you. So let us know. Let us know in the comments if there's anything you want to know, and we will sort that for you. In terms of next shows, me and Ryan will be back next week to finish off our CUSA preview, and the main Detroit Lions podcast for Roar the Lions UK will be back on Monday. Show is to be decided what we're doing right now. Again, if there's anything you want to see us do, let us know, because we are looking for ideas with the off-season very much in swing now. You can find us all over the internet, Roar the Lions UK. Just type it in and you will find us, all that good stuff there. Just remains me to thank Ryan. Thanks very much. Good to be back with you again. And we shall crack on with the previews next week. Just remains me again. Yeah, thank Ryan. We shall see you again soon. One Pride.